Welcome, 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 one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. I'm going to give this introduction twice tonight because I want to break this into two segments. The first segment, is going to be talking to the esteemed Ryan C. Mullally. I invited him to come discuss some thoughts on his conversation last week with Not So Erudite. I watched it, most of it, I missed the first 30, 45 minutes or so, and I was amazed at how quickly and how poorly it went off the rails. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why, what happened, thoughts on that in general. I also want to take time today, before we do that, to talk about Jay Jones for just very briefly, which I will do. And then at 8 o'clock, so in about an hour, gang, we're going to have Leftist Dan, we're going to have Ultra, we're going to have Ryan here, and we're going to have GenZAttorney to talk about the government shutdown. Why it happened, who's responsible, what's going on, is it a good thing, is it a bad thing, is it a neutral thing? We're going to debate, and it's going to be great, and I'll be moderating that. Okay, with that, Ryan, how you doing? What's up?
Doing good, buddy. Doing good. I've, finally started this YouTube project. So Natural Law with Ryan Mullally is now a thing. People can watch me. People can watch me stream. Content's going up. And I have this tiny little baby channel that somehow is growing, which is something that I would have been very surprised to hear if you asked me about it a year ago. So life's looking good.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad things are going up. I think one of the things that you... Here, let's just get into it. We'll get to the J stuff in a minute, and I do want to talk about that. But I think you learned something that I think most content creators learn at some point. And one of the lessons that you learn very early as a content creator, that what garners the most attention are going to be the conversations that break down. I think that the conversations that go off the rails, the conversations that do not go well, tend to get far more attention than the conversations that do. And I think with Erudite, seeing everyone cover it, seeing everyone kind of go over it and get their thoughts on it, you probably learned that lesson. What do you think of that? What are you going to do with that information? I'm just curious. There's different ways people go when they find this out.
I don't think it really changes my approach at all, to be honest with you. It's interesting you didn't watch the first 45 minutes. You should.
Unfortunately, yeah, I should. You are correct. Unfortunately, this weekend was very busy with real life stuff.
I'm not throwing any shade.
Yeah.
I will let the audience draw their own conclusion, and will note that I felt it useful to post the entire conversation, and she felt it useful to post 45-minute clips of the conversation. So I'll just leave it at that and let people draw their own conclusions.
How long was it? It was like 4 hours or something.
It was long. It felt like an eternity, but it was long. I think what I approach conversations on the internet almost always the same way, which is that I want to show grace. I want to have a civil conversation. I want to try to have a good conversation. And I'm an attorney. I argue for a living. I am not afraid of turning something into a fight if it's going to be a fight. And that particular conversation was odd because it was not actually supposed to be any of what it was. It wasn't supposed to be an interrogation of my beliefs and whether I'm a rational human being. That wasn't the topic we agreed to discuss. It wasn't supposed to be necessarily even a debate, though it could have turned into one. But what I intuited, and we can talk about why over the course of the conversation, is that she was primarily interested in debunking my beliefs. She wanted to show me to be irrational. That was her goal in the conversation. That's what I intuited from that. And if you watch the first 45 minutes, you'll see me being really attentive to trying to make it a productive conversation in a number of ways I could tell you about. And then at a certain point, I kind of intuited this was a different conversation and was in fact a stealth debate or a struggle session, at which point I started treating it that way and having that sort of conversation, which is when it became a lot more, I'd say, tense.
So
But
I did talk to Erudite right after it happened. I was watching and I was like going crazy. I'm like, we got to talk about this a little bit. I got to talk to her alone for about 5 minutes, and then a bunch of other people got in and wanted to have their say, which is fine. Um,
I'm
how do
laughing
we
because I
want to
got
handle this? Do you want me to give you my
I,
thoughts now? Do you want me to give you Erudite's thoughts as I interpreted them? Do you want me to just have you kind of explain your thought process between the conversation when you think it went off the rails? We can go several different directions with this. How
well,
would you like to handle this?
you can give as much content on your side as you context on your side as you would like. I just for full disclosure, I watched the reaction
Okay.
on the VOD
Yeah.
yesterday on stream, so I'm very aware of what you said, what Josiah said, what she said. So
Mhm.
like, there's no surprises there. If you want to give it to me for context or give it to your chat for context, that would be totally fine.
Sure.
I will say I love Josiah. I love talking to Josiah. I love having our banter with Josiah. One of the funniest trends in my life is that whenever I feel like I've won a debate, I see Josiah showing up in their stream telling them it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. So that's always
I
I
don't
always
think
feel
that's
good
what
about Josiah showing up, as that's kind of a mark that something went well.
um so Josiah does watch our content, right? And like this is something when there is contention and when there is, as I said, you're going to get more attention when things go wrong. Um, and this is what will draw eyes. Um, I'm I'm not sure your numbers, right? I don't have access to that, but
Tiny baby
okay,
numbers.
I
Baby
understand.
numbers.
But when I'm doing a show and it starts to go off the rails, what usually happens is the people watching it will reach out to their buddies, their friends, and say, "Are you watching what's happening on Wick TV? This is crazy." And full disclosure, that's how I tuned in to you and Erudite's conversation. I got a message, I won't say from who, and they were saying, "Are you watching Erudite and Ryan talk right now? It's going crazy." And I was like, "What's going on?" And so I clicked in, I tuned in to kind of figure it out. One of the things I think that I noticed is as the conversation progressed, and again, full disclosure, I didn't see the first like 30, 45 minutes or so, right? Um, it you talked past each other more and more and more. It was almost as if you were trying to have two different conversations. One of the reasons I asked Erudite when I went on her show, like, what was this pitched as, is because the conversation that was being had didn't seem to have an agreement on what you were talking about. So
Oh, oh no.
can you tell me, like Erudite told me her version, right? But can you tell me what you pitched it as? Like what was the conversation supposed to be about?
Yeah, no, I mean, I reached out to her because I had obviously had that big X feud with Destiny about his insane posts, and now he's blocked me and has taken the position that no one should speak to me again. So I was curious if I could speak to somebody else, and I reached out to her because I'd seen that she disagreed with his position,
Yes.
and she said she wanted to talk about it, which was great. And she said though that she warned me, like, I'm not here to bash Steven. I'm going to defend him. And I was like, that's fine. You know, I'm and honestly, I was interested in her perspective because she knows him better. So, you know, like that was a useful conversation. She was gracious about scheduling. And then she asked if there was another topic we could talk about. I didn't know why, but in case I guess we didn't have enough content on Destiny, though I imagine you could do 2 hours on that pretty easily. And I said, well, I've been doing some culture war stuff on my channel, so that would be useful. So now we had two topics, right? The day of, well, and we agreed to an 8 o'clock start time. The day of, she's not ready at 8, so I'm cooling my heels till 8:35. So I'm just, chilling, chat, talking with chat, doing some research, waiting for this shit to start. She's ready. We get in, and the first thing I say to her is how grateful I was to her,
Okay.
because if you remember back when, my welcome to the internet moment was I did a live debate with Destiny in New York, and I was really excited about it. I thought I could use that to launch a channel and to get some publicity. Um, but the next day, the Pixie allegations dropped. And I was losing my fucking mind because now, like, I use my real name. right? Like people
Yeah.
know I'm a lawyer. People know who I am, and now I am associated with somebody who's accused of sex crimes, and my day one on the big time of the internet. I'm like, holy fuck, what's
Welcome
happening?
to streaming. Okay,
Yeah,
welcome to streaming. This is how
and
it
I
goes.
I did not know what to do about it. I had never had a situation like this happen to me in my life. I reached out to two people for advice. You, thank you very much, and Erudite. And we didn't have a long conversation. We had a brief back and forth on DM. She gave me some useful advice. So I told that story. That was the first thing out of my mouth. Why did I do that? I'm expressing gratitude to her. I'm trying to set up a productive conversation. And I'm bringing up Destiny's bizarre public behavior, which is a very natural segue to our first agreed upon topic of conversation.
Okay.
But at every time I tried to talk about the agreed upon topic of conversation, she segued to what she wanted to do, which was interrogate my beliefs. That wasn't what we agreed to talk about. It's an interesting conversation, but it's a fraught one because one of the most famous debate tactics is you lock someone into a belief, you walk them down a Socratic method, you show a logical contradiction. Right? That's a classic debate tactic. It goes back to Socrates. Everyone does it. Andrew Wilson's famous for it. I've seen you do it. I do it. Everyone does it. This is not a weird debate tactic. Everyone does it. But if you don't know you're debating and it's framed as a conversation and you're doing it publicly, that's a very fraught conversation for
Sure.
people who don't know each other.
I think that this is this is I think one of the things that it would have been helpful to know Erudite more. Erudite is not the type, at least normally, right? We all have our moments, to do the dunking gotcha, ha ha ha. I've tricked you into holding a position that you don't actually really have using my logic games and word tactics. I haven't seen her do that normally. When you engage with Erudite, or at least whenever I've watched her have a good faith debate, right? And she's had some bad faith ones with other people like Jan Dreyer and Andrew Wilson and things like that, but that's not you, okay? She generally tends to work with people to kind of understand what's going on. That's why I was so surprised at how she was acting in the conversation with you, because it felt like she wasn't listening to you. I'll give you this first. I'll give you the stuff that I think Erudite did wrong first. How's that? And then we'll talk about you, right, a little bit. I do think that there were several points in the conversation where she obviously was not listening to what you were actually saying. You were giving a point. You would explain your point. You would explain why you felt that way. And then she would, I don't know if she was angry or tired or whatever. She would just misinterpret it. And there's a couple times that happened. However, and this is the other side of the coin, there were times when I think that you were not hearing what she was trying to do. I think that the idea that this was a struggle session, I just don't agree with that. I don't think it was. I don't think that's what Erudite at least intended to do, and I don't think that's what Erudite actually ended up doing. She did want to understand what you were trying, where you were coming from. As this relates to the original topic at hand, again, I'd have to look to see exactly where it went off the rails, right? Like what point, what question, was it just an out of the blue thing where she brought this up?
Wick, why are we interrogating my belief in originalism, or why are we interrogating my belief in natural law at all? Like, how does that relate to either topic?
Well, if I am going
because she
Sure.
started there. I was trying to segue to other topics, and in the beginning of the conversation, to be totally frank, I was attempting to be gracious about things.
Okay.
And that led to me, for example, like not correcting some big errors that she made when talking about philosophy, because I was trying not to be a dick. And then in the second half of the conversation, I'm not going to correct them, because if your goal is to prove a logical contradiction, I'm no longer in like helpful mode where I'm trying to give you a solid base in philosophy to question me with. Like, so, the conversation went off the rails, at least in my mind, because we agreed to two topics of conversation. She pursued neither. She would not accept a segue to either. And what the conversation
And
she wanted to have was...
Just to remind me, the two topics you agreed to initially were Destiny's tweets
and culture war as a proxy for a moral value drift.
I think that second one is what she was trying to get to. When we talk about moral value drift, if I'm going to talk to anyone about a moral system, one of the things that helps is to know your moral system and to understand your moral system, because I want to speak your language, so to speak, right? I want to be able to make persuasive arguments or to understand what you're actually saying by knowing the context of the words that you're using, like the terms that you're using. Like when I talk to someone who's deeply religious, I'm going to talk differently than I would to someone who's an atheist, for example, right? Like there's arguments that I would make with an atheist that I would not make with someone who's deeply religious, and vice versa. So again, I didn't see where it went off the rails, and I have to keep repeating that. But I can imagine in best faith, and I'm trying to be best faith to both of you, to be clear. I want to be good faith to you and good faith to Erudite. She was probably trying to understand you, at least initially. And yeah.
Can I give you a really funny example about that?
Go ahead.
One of the things she kept telling me is that we were having a disagreement about epistemology, right? And I kept telling her, no, we're not. And what I mean by that is, if we're having like a serious philosophical conversation about my beliefs, we would start with ontology. We'd say, oh, natural law exists. It is real, it exists, it is objective, it is a moral truth, right? Not subjective, not a cultural construct. That would be the ontological claim. Then the epistemological claim would be, well, how do you know what natural law is? How can you know what natural law is? How do you know what life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness are natural rights? How can you know what the definition of liberty is within that context? That's epistemology. What she did is she asked, do you like originalism? I was like, yeah. Like, do you like liberty? And she was like, I was like, yeah. She's like, well, aren't those fundamentally incompatible with having insufficient disdain for Donald Trump? It's like, whoa, okay. Well, now we've skipped the serious philosophical inquiry into the epistemology, though she thinks that we were having that conversation because she kept using the word incorrectly, but she kept using it. And now what we're doing is we're talking about applied politics to a value system that we haven't actually really defined up to this point. And your assertion is that it is fundamentally irrational for me to hold the beliefs I hold. That's a rough conversation. It's a rough conversation, Wick,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult. Imagine like you're talking to someone you've never spoken to before, and the conversation is your beliefs are fundamentally irrational.
No, you're correct.
Yeah,
in
that's a lot to ask, especially when that
it can
wasn't
turn
the topic
contentious
agreed to.
real quick, and it can be, as you said. I think the word fraught is a fair word to use. Well, let me ask you this. If you had to have that conversation again, what would you do differently?
Almost nothing.
Almost nothing, really.
No, watch the first 30 minutes. Like, honestly, I bent over backwards to keep the conversation civil for about half an hour to 45 minutes, somewhere in there. Then a debate broke out that I didn't think we were going to have. When a debate broke out, I changed tactics. And then when the debate broke out, and it was clear we had an irreconcilable difference, I said, despite our irreconcilable differences, let's try to do some good modeling. As somebody who occupies like kind of a more moderate position on the right, and she, I think, is a more moderate person on the left, let's find some common ground. Let's find some olive branches. Let's talk about things we can agree on. I segued to that. And as we started making common ground, she then came back and said, I can't make any common ground until you concede that Donald Trump is sufficiently bad that you should always vote against him in the future, or vote against him in the future, something along those lines. So she, even after we had the fight, I was willing to de-escalate and switch to another conversation and be productive. And after I did that, she resumed the fight. At which point it got very hostile, and that's when the bad faith and all that other stuff came out. So I'm like, well, what are we doing? Like, what is the conversation you're seeking to have, if we've had the disagreement, it's done. You're saying that there's no common ground. There's nothing. If I don't agree with you, or I am not willing to concede to this point, there is no common ground we could have. That's a struggle session.
I
There's no other word for that.
I just disagree that that's what her goal was and what she was trying to do. I think she was trying to understand, but she legitimately could not understand because it again, it got worse as it went, and there came a point where she was being very stubborn. I will admit this, right? But she just wanted some answers to the questions that she was giving you, and she felt that you were not like. It's like, let me think of a good analogy here. If I said to everyone, like, my favorite color is purple. I love purple. Purple's my favorite color. And then turns out that every time I chose something to wear or chose what to paint my house or chose what kind of colored car to buy, I'd buy a green car. I'd wear green clothes. I'd paint my room green. And then someone might ask, well, you say your favorite color is this, but your actions and how you behave look like this. Can you explain the difference? And I think that's where it got stuck. And I think that's the point Erudite was trying to get at or to understand was like, hey, you say you believe in freedom. You say you believe in all these values. I don't understand. And I do believe her, and I don't think she's being bad faith. I think she legitimately does not understand how you can not see Trump as the greater evil between the choices available when it comes to freedom. That's how I see it.
So a few things. One, is Trump the greater evil is not the topic of conversation we agreed to. Just to make that totally clear.
No, I get that, but we
and no, that actually does matter because, as you know, because you've seen me with Josiah and Pisco and on your panels. I've had that conversation like 100. I've had like 100 hours of that conversation. So it's not necessarily the conversation I was seeking to have. But beyond that, in your example, let's just grant you all of that. Let's grant you all of that. Green, purple car, right? At the end of it, I'm like, God, that doesn't make any fucking sense, right? Or you're like, you don't seem to understand me. I like purple, but my car's green. You don't get it. Okay. Hey, do you want to get a beer? Like, whatever. Let's do something. Let's build bridges, right? And the person's like, yeah, let's get a beer. And then on the way there, they're like, I can't get a beer with you unless you admit to me that you're a fucking asshole about your green car, purple car issue.
I don't think she was calling you an asshole, though. Well, she was at the end. She was at the end.
At a certain point, you got to realize you're like, oh, like, we are not able to agree to disagree. And the reason, Wick, that, and I'm going to be honest here, the reason that I piss off people on the left in a way that like deeply MAGA people don't, to be often, is because I'm just like, I don't want to be a total asshole here, but like, I have a degree in philosophy. I have a master's degree in education. I have a magna cum laude degree from a top 5 law school. I clerked in the most prestigious district in the country. I'm deeply read on the subjects I'm interested in. I know what I'm talking about. My beliefs are rational and coherent, and I've thought them through, and I present them that way. And on the left, the presumption is that if only people were educated, if only people were smart, if only people knew what they were talking about, if only people had done the work of interrogating their beliefs, they would agree with us. And I don't. I fundamentally don't. I spent a year and a half trying to find a place for my ideas on the left, and I was told in no uncertain terms by everyone I spoke to, there is no place for them. So that's where we are, and I think that's very frustrating. I even heard you afterwards say that you don't think my beliefs are rationally held. I don't think that it's within the worldview of left-leaning thought, which I'm pretty familiar with because I inhabited it for most of my life, to imagine that there is a principled conservative position. It's not something that people naturally concede. And I think that it bothers people, and it creates a target, and that's the target she was aiming at.
It's interesting, right? To believe there's a whole system of thought that has no coherent answer to what you are. I don't know. there's
Have you read Thomas Sowell? The
yes,
Conflict of Visions?
yes. I've read a few of his books actually.
The unconstrained vision is premised on the idea that there is a perfect solution, that there is a way to perfect human society, that there is a way, there is a right way if only we could learn it. The fact that I fundamentally disagree is contrary to the core underlying premise.
But the point is, like, you and I agree on a lot of things. Principally, we agree that yes, there are a lot of things that beliefs I hold that I think you hold too. Smaller government, something I want. Limits on the executive branch, something I want. Something I'm assuming you want too, right? But the frustrating part isn't your principle, it's your behavior. It's when I see, like, okay, we both want limits on the executive branch, and then we see the executive branch engage in reframing how they use their, like, I'll give you an example that's in the news. We agree that the executive branch has the power to enforce immigration law, right? To enforce our borders. I agree with you there. But Trump is doing it in such a way that is expanding the power of the executive branch in how that they engage this in ways that I feel are illegal, unconstitutional. The courts tend to agree with me, at least the lower courts, at least so far, right? I wonder if you hold that belief, right? And I'm not, again, I don't want to get stuck on this, but I'm just giving you an example so we can continue the conversation, please, right? If we get stuck on this, I can understand how someone would feel like, well, wait, you just said one thing and then your behavior is all doing something else. What's going on? And I think that's what happened with Erudite is she saw this contradiction, or what she thought was a contradiction, and she was like, explain this, and
she asked exactly that question, and I'll provide the answer here that I provided there. I'm not sure it'll be word for word, but I think it'll be pretty close because I've given this answer before.
Mm-hmm.
When people on the right and people on the left talk about wanting to limit executive power and wanting a smaller government, they mean different things often, right? When people on the right talk about wanting a smaller government and wanting a limited executive, they do not mean they want a president who is impotent within his sphere of control. What they mean is the sphere of the president's control should be smaller. That's what we mean when we talk about we want to get rid of executive agencies. We want the president to have control over less things, but have control over the things he has control over. The things he should have control over include things like trade discussions with other nations, include things like military, include things like immigration and border enforcement, include things like enforcement of the law.
But I get what you're saying. I understand that.
Just to make sure, the contradiction that Erudite's pointing at is because she's using the phrase small government in a way that I'm not using it, which would be fine, and I wouldn't have like a whiff of bad faith if it wasn't for the fact that I provided her with that exact explanation during the conversation, which had no impact on whether or not she felt that there was some contradiction.
But even within that framing of you want to have less things that the executive branch has control over, but still want them to have control in the I guess the spheres of influence which they do occupy, I think even then, like, there's a disagreement because immigration. We both agree that the president should have the power to enforce immigration. But how that immigration is enforced, I don't want the executive branch to have the ability to do certain things to enforce that order that would violate the Constitution in other ways. So, for example, the president could, right, say I'm enforcing immigration, I'm enforcing the border, so I am going to nationalize all the border states. I'm going to nationalize their or federalize their National Guard, and I'm going to order them to shoot on sight anyone in this no man's land, right? I mean, that would be border enforcement, But
And if
surely you wouldn't want him to have the power to do that,
and if
correct?
I had advocated for that, I think there would be a good argument that I was contradicting my principles.
Okay,
But
okay,
the
but
examples
I'm
that we were
using an example
discussing,
to show like that,
yeah,
that you agree with me that there are limits within even the sphere of control
yeah,
that we feel the president should have. Yes.
I mean, there are limits. I just don't think there are. I think we would think that there are substantially different
Yeah,
and
we
probably
will
fewer.
disagree on the
We'll disagree with it, like, but of course
yeah,
there are some limits. Yeah, I
certainly.
think that's fine. But
I
like
think
but even so, like the only examples in immigration that we talked about that I can recall
sure.
were the Kilmar Abreu case, and which she didn't seem to have a working knowledge of the facts of, because she didn't. She seemed surprised when I say that when he was returned, and had, so that took her a second to catch up on. And then we talked about that, and we talked about the fact that I think a good way to reduce national tension would be for an agreement to be reached where the Trump administration says, if you states stop with the sanctuary policies and start cooperating with ICE and turning people over who you catch for crimes and they're illegal, then we will stop raiding. I think that would be a great compromise. And
it's
I think
a
that that's totally consistent with our principles.
yeah, but it's almost as when Destiny refuses to disavow violence until the president disavows violence. Like, just because one side may not be doing a perfect thing or a good thing doesn't mean that the other side can turn around and do something that's, I think, equally vile. Um,
But okay, let's say I granted you that your side, that one side was worse than the other, and I wouldn't, by the way. I think the sanctuary city policy thing is a very, very serious problem and is actually
do
the
you think that?
cause of the
Well,
raids. But
I don't want
we
to.
don't
I
need to
don't
go
want to
down,
have. We can
we
have a
don't need
debate
to do
on
that.
that another
No, no, no,
day.
no, no. We can do it another day. But what I mean is, even if I was wrong about that, like even if my weighting of it was wrong,
Sure.
that's still not a logical contradiction in my beliefs. That's just a policy
I mean, it
preference.
might be depending on how wrong you were, right? Like how
I
you
mean,
were
I
wrong.
guess I guess in theory, but not in any way that she could articulate, and not in any way that I could pin down now. Especially because one of the crazier parts of that conversation, if you go back and watch it, is at a certain point she says, "Oh, you believe in liberty?" And I was like, "Yeah, I believe in liberty." And then she starts talking about, "Well, what if this contradicts liberty?" And I was like, "Well, there are other values as well as liberty, and you have to balance them." And she's like, "Oh, now there's more values. Now there's more." I'm like, "Well, in the Declaration they list three, so we could at least start with those." But the issue there is the idea that I could then introduce a increasingly complex and more robust position to get her up to speed as to what I actually think and believe was a problem for her because it derailed the quest to make my beliefs seem irrational. Like there, if you watch the conversation back, Wick, and you just, get a scotch and it's after the fact, no emotion. It's not, we're not going to be on screen about it, and just are like, do I really think she's trying to get to the heart and have a discussion like a Joe Rogan podcast where we're
I just
just
no.
asking about what
I
she's doing?
grant you, at
She
a
was
certain
not doing that.
point, that stopped, right? But again, I didn't see the first 45 minutes. But even in the time that I tuned in, I think for the first, I want to say hour, maybe a little less. I don't know the exact time frame. There was a good faith attempt being made, I think, at least from what I observed. Now, yes, you're correct. At a certain point, that stopped, right? That stopped. And I think that the clearest indication of that, and she admitted to this in the after show, right? Like the reaction show or whatever, that she asked you at a certain point to repeat what she had just said, to kind of like steelman what she was saying, and you did so fairly correctly, and she said you got it wrong. And she admitted again in the reaction stream and she said this live, right? That I was just mad at that point. I should have granted him that. I was just mad, and so I said it, and I
Do
shouldn't
you
have said
remember?
it.
And
So
I agree with her that I did steelman it correctly, and I'm glad she admitted it later because she was clearly frustrated at the time. Do
yeah,
you remember what my steelman was?
I don't know the exact. I'm
I'll
sorry.
paraphrase, but my steelman was, your point is that I have beliefs that are fundamentally incompatible with the fact that I think the Biden administration was worse than the Trump administration in many, many ways that matter to me deeply, such that my beliefs are irrational despite the fact that I disagree with you. That was my steelman.
Mm.
So, and she agrees, That's what she was doing. So when I say
Well,
that
that's
this
what
is
she was.
clearly
That
the
was
type
her
of
point.
conversation we
Not
were having,
there's a difference here between what she initially came in to do and what she was trying to show with the point that she'd been making. Let me read these super chats real quick, and then we'll get back to it
all good,
because
buddy.
I want to have better conversations in the future, and I would like to have the ability, right, for people to talk to you and understand you, because you may think that like me thinking that your positions are irrational is some sort of leftist mind bug or something, but I do fundamentally I still like you. I still think you're cool, right? But I do think that there is a fundamental incompatibility in your belief of small government and not seeing Trump as like the greatest threat to that, greater than Biden, greater than Kamala, greater than Obama, greater than Clinton, right?
You want me to answer, or you want to read your chats?
I'm going to read the chats, but
Okay.
I'm telling you that so after I read the chats, you can answer. Does that make sense? Okay. $2 from Testicle Johnson to say Wick is sweeping. I'm just trying to build bridges, man. $10 for Alexander Wren. The fact is that beliefs fall in line with your priors and priorities. There is coherence in that. It just requires for you to listen rather than try to convince. Thank you for the $10, Alexander Wren. $10 more from Alexander Wren to say, at Ryan, is there not a better term for that than smaller government? Maybe we start using terms that say what we mean rather than underhandedly adjusting them for our own purposes. I'll let you respond to that too, but one more thing. $2 from Gelatinous Rube to say jailing defectors is the safe. Oh, I'm assuming you mean to say jailing defectors is the same as defecting, but you said jailing defectors is as safe as defecting, so I don't know what you mean, Gelatinous Rube. But you can respond to that super chat. I'm just really curious what your response would be.
I think what I mean by small government is what our founders meant by small government. If anyone has changed the meaning of the term over time, it's certainly not me. But this is a very common move in politics. I think we all have seen, a lot of the debate over DEI, for example, and someone says, how could you be against diversity, equity, and inclusion? Aren't those all wonderful, wonderful words? Don't they mean wonderful things? And to quote Steven Pinker, I have no problem per se with diversity, equity, inclusion, but I'm forced to remind the audience about the Holy Roman Empire, which was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. So at a certain point, if I'm basing my understanding of these terms in the American founding, and you're basing your understanding of these terms in the last 5 political minutes, I feel pretty good about how I'm using them.
To address that point, like it's almost as if you're insisting that when I call you gay, I'm calling you happy. Gay used to mean happy. There was a time when gay meant happy. That's true. That's not what it means today. And you know it, I know it, we all know it, everyone knows it. It'd be a weird thing to insist that, yes, prior in the 40s, 50s, 20s, or whatever, it meant something else. But we all know what we're talking about today when we use that word.
But the fact of the matter is that some of these words shifting meaning is why I prefer the right to the left. Because, for example, one of the things, there's a small moment in the Erudite conversation. She asked at a certain point, do you think these things are more important than voting? Like life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And I was like, obviously, yes.
Democracy, but yeah, I remember that.
Obviously more important than democracy. Because you could have a just monarch. It's unlikely. History has taught us it doesn't really happen. And if it does, it turns into a shit show really fast. But it's theoretically possible to have a just monarch, right? But if you have a democracy and they vote for slavery, you're not more moral because you're a democracy. Democracy is a method for achieving a just government. It is not the measure of a just government. And this is why all of our founders were mostly concerned about the perils of democracy and created a system that limited democracy and made it a republic and put all these anti-democratic measures into our government because they knew that democracy could go off the rails easily. And what they were aiming at was natural law. That was their goal, was natural law. But democracy was a vehicle for the goal, not the goal itself. But if you ask people on the left what their fundamental American value is, they're going to say 9 times out of 10, democracy. But and that's not an insubstantial change in the American system, and I know I'm monologuing, but just because we've talked about this a lot, America is a propositional nation. If you abandon the proposition, which I believe the left has, more or less, there's nothing left. That's it. We don't have anything to fall back on. We're not an ethno state. We're not a theocracy. If you abandon the proposition, you leave a moral vacuum, and the left has abandoned the proposition. That's my problem. So,
Well,
I actually think I'm on firm ground.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fundamental disagreement that we have, that the left has abandoned it. Just to monologue myself a little bit, I think that the only hope we have of getting back to the proposition of the nation, as was declared in our founding statement, are the Democrats right now, in this moment in time. That may not have been true 10 years ago. It may not have been true 20 years ago. But right now, today, in the year of our Lord 2025, if there is any hope to salvage this nation, is there any hope to get off the train to hell that we seem to be on in this country, where the government grows bigger and bigger and bigger, where they exercise more and more power, where Stephen Miller, who is de facto in control of the government right now, frankly, is going around calling anything that ever disagrees with the administration an act of insurrection, where he is calling the Democratic Party terrorists, right, that need to be dismantled using government power. I think that the only solution is the party that's going to actually oppose this administration, and that happens to be the Democrats at this point. But that is all to say, this is beside the point, because I want to talk about how Erudite and you could have had a better conversation.
Well, it's not besides the point, by the way. It's exactly the point. It's exactly the point, because you said the same thing in the after panel, and the issue there, and I think you actually use these words more or less exactly, is that my view is fundamentally irrational, right? Like I think that's what you called it. So, when I present it as rational and I try to defend it, this is what I was saying earlier. It becomes a lightning rod that is then attacked, and that conversation will quickly, no matter how it started, turn into a debate, as our conversation almost just did. Because if the goal of the conversation,
well, it didn't have to. You understand that you're choosing that right now. No. That's what you're choosing to do. We don't have to, and I'm giving you off rants here, saying, "Hey, I want to talk about how you and Erudite have a conversation."
I'm just pointing out.
But now you're insisting.
We have a microcosm of what happened yesterday, and I'm pointing out to you that in a situation where I'm publicly, because this is public, this is not a private conversation, I'm publicly being told my beliefs are irrational, I'm going to defend them.
Yeah, I did that on the Erudite panel. I did not do that today, largely in part because I didn't want to make this a debate about your beliefs, right?
I'm delighted to not have the debate with.
Okay. I'm just saying, right? Like, you're the one bringing it up and then saying that it's a microcosm of what we're doing right now. But that's all beside the point. I think that this definition of words is very important when talking, right? To have the ability to understand what the other person is trying to say. Like, I can disagree with someone's definition of a word, that's fine, or a term. But usually when I'm having a conversation, I want to know what they mean when they say things like democracy, or when they say things like small government, or when they say things like propositional nation. Like, what is it that you mean by this? Because it might not be the same thing that I mean. And as you said, we probably do mean different things when we talk about smaller government and things like that. And when I want to limit executive power, you mean you want to limit what it's in charge of, whereas I mean I want to limit what actions it can take in the spheres of influence it has. I don't want to make it impotent by any means, but I do want to make sure that it can't do things that I would find running afoul of our other of our citizenry's constitutional protections. So I think that in a conversation with Erudite, it might be, as annoying as it is, just understand what she means by small government and then act accordingly, and just say, well, no, I have a different opinion on what I mean by small government. So when you say small government, I just don't mean that. I mean a fundamentally different thing. And I think that would have been helpful in having an actual conversation. What do you think?
I agree with you to a certain extent. The extent is that, like, I agree that that's a useful thing to do. The issue is that I did that. Like, I told her what I meant by small government, and I used the same words I used here. She asked how I could possibly support this administration over a Harris administration. And the analogy I gave was that I want a house, one side, and house here being a metaphor
The
for
house and apartment thing.
the Democratic
I
Republic
remember
that
that part.
is our birthright. And the other side wants to build a semi-socialist kind of commie adjacent apartment building that I'm not into. And the fact that the person who wants to build the house is a shitty carpenter and is doing a lot of stuff I don't like doesn't make me yearn for the apartment building, which I think is a pretty easy way to understand not the micro, but the macro about why I might be okay given those options with something that I disagree with in a number of ways. And so it's not that she didn't know what I was saying. She responded by telling me that I was wrong to think of it that way. Which, okay, but like,
the problem,
at a certain point, that is just a debate, Wick. And I really go back, watch the beginning. I was not in debate mode. I was in
you went into debate mode by the end. You were in debate mode
by the end.
Yes,
oh yes. No. I transparently, I was in absolute debate mode by the end. Watch the beginning. Go
again,
watch the beginning. It's a different conversation. It's on my channel. You can watch it.
Yeah, check it out, gang. I have a link to his channel in my YouTube description. I'll say this because I want to spend like 10 minutes before the panel talking about Jay. What the fuck is his name? Jay Jameson.
Jay Jones.
Jay Jones. Sorry,
the reason you don't know his name is that nobody gave a fuck who this person was until like 5 minutes ago. So we're all catching up.
Yeah, Jay Jones. Look, JJ. That's what I keep calling him. Right? I'm terrible with names. But I'll say this, and I'll let you have the last word in the conversation. I think that your conversation was a poor conversation. It did not go well. I don't think it was productive. I don't think it was helpful to have. But some conversations just happen like that. It was entertaining in a certain sort of sense, right? But it just didn't work, I think, for either you or Erudite's goals in the conversation. I think neither of you achieved what you wanted to achieve. That said, I would love to... I do think that Erudite's is wrong, and I think some of my audience is wrong just to discount you. I do. I think that would be a mistake. You're an intelligent guy. You do think things through. We just fundamentally disagree on some certain things, but you generally move in a way that is understandable. What are your final thoughts on this?
No, I appreciate that, Wick, and I agree with you. I did not get to have the conversation I wanted to have, because the conversation I wanted to have was about Destiny's public tweets, which is what I've reached out to her to talk about. And no matter how many times I tried to segue to that, and if you watch the whole thing, you'll see I tried to segue to that a few times. That was not a conversation that was on deck. And I invite viewers to see what Destiny has said publicly to me about me to Erudite in a conversation following this stream, and encourage you to examine why that conversation was impossible to have. Draw your own conclusions. But in any event, I was not able to have that conversation. And what I think I did is I entered a conversation and realized in real time, and you can watch it happen in over 3 hours, that I was not having a conversation, I was having a debate. What you are correct about, Wick, is that I am not conflict averse. And when a debate starts, I will attempt to win the debate, which is what I did and what I think I did, right? I think that the goal of that conversation was to make me look irrational, and I think she looked plenty irrational herself, which means that I accomplished my goal at that point because it was a debate at that point. Now, could I have another conversation with her that goes better? I hope so. And I was serious. I told her this over DMs afterwards. Like, I'm very serious about the idea of showing grace. I'm very serious about, not taking things personally. I don't come into these conversations looking to keep the baggage of the last one, but I'm also not gonna be a pushover. It just doesn't go very well. And I've had way too many conversations on the internet where I let the other person steer the conversation, and then at the end of it, you go, "What the fuck just happened?" Right? So, lesson learned.
And I mean this with love. I think you're stubborn. I'm too. I am too.
Oh, don't think I'm stubborn. No, I'm stubborn. There's no universe. It's a dominant personality trait.
As
Totally
a
agree.
fellow bull, stubborn guy, right? Like one of those guys who's just an ox. Sometimes it doesn't help to be stubborn. That's all I gotta say. Okay. Let's read some of these more super chats, and I want to talk about Jay Jones. $10 from Alexander Rin. Thank you for the $10 to say at Ryan. Doesn't the idea of small government not include the core concept that the federal government only has the power explicitly stated in the, I'm sorry, he corrected himself. Does the idea of small government not include the core concept that the federal government only has the power explicitly stated in the Constitution? Does Trump represent that to you?
What Trump represents to me, if I'm going to be honest, and I'm very critical of Trump, so I'll be critical here, though I'll try to explain what I like about him, what I don't like about him. Trump to me represents a bulldozer. He's a blunt instrument. He's knocking a lot of shit over, and he often transgresses the law. And when he does, I am critical of him for it. As Wick knows, I've been on his panel to debate that in favor of the position that what Trump's doing is illegal a few times. It's not a thing I'm shy about. However, you said, doesn't small government represent the idea that the federal government is limited in its powers? Well, yes, it does. But if you go back in our history, we have seen Democrat after Democrat expand those powers beyond anything our founders could have imagined without a constitutional amendment. If you think about the way that Congress can reach into states and regulate you without any interstate commerce because of things that FDR did when he manipulated the Supreme Court and threatened them with court packing to make them essentially amend the Constitution for him. There is a enormous buildup
you give $50 answers to $10 questions. Yeah. Okay,
Wait,
if they want a dissertation, they can pay more. Okay,
so pay more, but the answer is the same one I gave to Erudite. Trump is often doing the wrong thing. I often criticize him, but he is bulldozing in the right direction, which I appreciate.
Okay, $2. Again, fundamentally disagree, but fair enough. $2 from Gelatinous Rube to say, Wick, put a guy like this on my side next time. Well, next time you come on my show and it's a topic that Ryan has interest in, we could probably do that. We'll have to see.
I'm a lawyer, man. You can hire me.
Jay Jones. Okay, gang. And I want to be real quick with this because it's a Virginia issue, frankly. I can't vote for AG in Virginia, neither can you, unless you live in Virginia, right? But Jay Jones is the nominee for the Democratic Party to be the Attorney General in Virginia. And recently, his private messages, his private texts, I believe it looks like, were exposed. And he says some pretty out there shit. I think, and I won't bear the lead here, I think what he said is disqualifying. He does need to step down, to step aside. He is not in a position that he should be in charge of anything, let alone Attorney General. I think that these statements, again, assuming that these are like accurate, and I think they are, I think that these statements mean that we just can't support the guy. If I was in Virginia, I would not vote for him. Let me read you guys, and I'll bring it up on screen here. Let me give me a second here. Let me read you guys the. Oh, are you talking to your audience, not me?
Yeah, I was answering a question. Go ahead.
Fine. Says this. This is his interlocutor. You weren't simply asking questions, and you know it. I genuinely was. I wasn't attacking you. I was trying to understand your logic. You weren't trying to understand. You were talking about hoping Jennifer Gilbert's children would die. Yes, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. So he's hoping kids die. That's crazy. Okay, let's keep going. There isn't a point blank asked you more than 3 times, and you dug in that you meant it. I honestly am questioning a lot today. I mean, I do think Todd and Jennifer are evil. And I think that they're breeding little fascists. Yes. So he's calling these kids fascists, which, okay, fair. I mean, that's not nearly as bad. And he thinks that Chad and Jennifer Gilbert, assumingly, are evil, which, again, is fine. But then he says this. He says, if those guys die before me, I will go to their funerals to piss on their graves, send them out awash in something. And then he says, 3 people, 2 bullets, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. The interlocutor is asking him to stop. He says, LOL, okay. Look,
I mean, the last one, I mean, it's all gross. The last one, the 3 bullets one,
yeah.
In isolation, if I'm being maximally charitable here, in isolation, that's kind of a meme, right? Like you're like, I hate this person so much.
Yeah.
So like in isolation, that would be a meme. The kids thing is pretty rough. That's a rough thing to say even privately. The one that I actually was most upset by wasn't even these ones. It was the one where he thought it would be good if more cops got killed in the line of duty. And the reason that bothered me is he's running for attorney general. Like, you know, you're running to be law enforcement, and you're taking the position that cops being killed in the line of duty is good. That seems like a character issue at that point.
There was a report released today where we don't have a text of it because it was over the phone, but it was with the same person, where they did make they were having an argument about qualified immunity, and he argued that he's maybe if more cops got shot, they'd stop shooting people less, right? Maybe if more cops died, they should stop shooting people less. Regardless, in taking all these things into consideration, the reason I'm bringing this up is because if we are to be believed that we don't support political violence, if we are to be believed that we are actually better than the other side, one of the qualifications for that is we have to be better than the other side. That means stop saying you're going to fucking shoot your opposition. Stop wishing their kids would die so that they learn their fucking lesson. Yeah, that's gross. It's disqualifying. And J. Jones should step down. That's the official WIC position on that.
And if I was to give any advice to the Democrats, to the extent they still want advice from me, if they ever did, there is not symmetry between the parties. Don't believe that. The playing field is not symmetrical. For Democrats to win, they need to occupy a moral high ground. It's critical to the messaging of the party. Obama, Clinton, when they're successful, it's because they have a sonorous message that resonates from a place of moral authority. You can't run this guy and have that message. You can't. It's just it's not a fight the Democrats could win. It's not symmetrical. I know that's unfair. That's life. So I think you probably should get this guy to step down, but we'll see if they do.
I would say this, that I have seen several prominent Democrats call for him to step down publicly. It's something that there is an asymmetry in the party. And I will say that the Democrats will call for this. Republicans generally don't.
I agree with you. And that's actually the asymmetry. It's that a messy food fight where everybody goes to their tribal corner is a fight Republicans win electorally. And it's a fight Democrats lose electorally. So I'm setting aside the morality. I'm just saying tactically, they benefit differently from these exchanges. And I think the Democrats should move to a different position if they can.
Okay, let's bring on some other people because, gang, in about a minute, once they all get here, we are going to have the debate that we initially were going to have today on the Shutdown, and I will introduce that when we get more people. Ultra, how you doing today? Can you hear us? You're muted on your end, ma'am. Hello.
Really cool. It's a really cool icon, though, so I can live with it. Like, if this is the debate opponent, I can make this work.
Sorry, hello.
Hi. Do you got a camera for us today?
Yes, I do.
Pull it up, please.
There you go.
Grand. Wonderful. Okay, the other contestants are here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, Anne is sideways, but that's okay.
Kind of.
We'll fix it in a minute.
What up, Gen Z? How you doing?
Yo. Good to see y'all.
Okay, Gen Z, you are low. Can you turn yourself up, please?
Absolutely. 1 second.
I am also having Discord errors. I'll be back.
How's this?
Keep talking.
Test. 1, 2, 3. Test.
Keep
I can
talking.
just yell too.
Okay.
It only works if you say 1, 2, 3, 4.
You know, I'm racist against the number 4. How about that?
Well, that's not very nice.
No, just kidding. We love all of our number 4s equally.
Okay.
Ugh,
Wonderful.
It is still not working. Oh my
No,
gosh.
we can see
We can
you.
see you. We can hear you.
Yeah, we can see
Well,
you. We can hear you.
If you can see me, that's fine. I can't see me, but it's okay.
You know what?
Can you see us?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's what matters. Okay. Told you guys I'd do it twice today, and here's the second time. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, we've got a show for you tonight. Recently, the government has shut down. A lot has been said as to why. Both sides are blaming the other. And tonight, we're going to talk about who is responsible for the government shutdown, the Republicans or the Democrats, and why. We're going to talk about what impact, if any, the shutdown is going to have electorally. We're going to talk about, regardless of who's to blame, who are the public going to hold responsible for this. We'll also talk about some of the other incidental effects and important effects of a government shutdown and what that means for the country. We got some great guests today. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves and have, and I stress this, a brief introductory statement. And you know what? We're going to start with Ultra. Ultra, tell people who you are, what you do, why we should listen to you, and what are your thoughts on the government shutdown? Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Ultra. Why should you listen to me? That is an excellent question. I do have a lot of experience with debating politics. Now, it is on TikTok, so I'm not going to say it's like the best experience in the world. I am not like a lawyer, but this does directly impact me because I am an employee of the government, so it does have direct impact on me. I'm not furloughed, but... And my opinion, of course, is that the Republicans are at fault for the government shutdown for a number of reasons. I don't know if you want me to enumerate those or if we're just going to...
Please. Briefly.
So, for the typical talking points, the Republicans are currently in charge of all three branches of government. So, the fact that they're unable to negotiate a shutdown or they're unable to negotiate the bill is kind of like unbelievable at this point. This is also the second shutdown that has happened under Trump, and the fact that he's unable to actually meet and discuss this with them civilly is kind of disappointing.
Okay, we're going to get into it as we go. Let's see if we can get Ann back. 1 second. As we wait, Gen Z, give us your opening statement, please.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. I'm GenZAttorney. You can call me Scotty-O or the GenZAttorney, or Scott, whatever you want. Appreciate you having me back. Wick, always glad to be here. On the topic of the government shutdown, I'm going to, I like to caveat things, but tonight I'm taking a strong position that this is 100%, no, nay, 1,000% Democrat-caused shutdown. I think anyone who has any understanding of the procedure going on within the Congress and also the facts on the ground as to how the negotiations are going, how we got to where we are now, and how we would get out moving forward. It is just, to me, self-evident, as our boy Thomas Jefferson would say, that this is a Democrat shutdown. Of course, I'll get into more of the details as we go. But also, I wanted to point out, if y'all can see back there, my sticky note, I'm pointing right to it. That's my prediction for how this debate's going to go as far as my friends on the left. I know you can't see the writing on it. That's on purpose. But I've made a bold prediction. As if my prediction comes true, I will go grab it and show you all. If it does not come true, I'm just going to shift over like this and just be like this the rest of the time. So looking forward to get into it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for being here. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully Anne returns, and we can. We might need a backup, gang. So if anyone's in the audience and wants to argue the Democratic side of this, and wants to help our friend Ultra out, please let me know. We might not need it, but we'll see. Go ahead, Ryan Mullally, please.
Hi, I'm Ryan Mullally. I'm also an attorney, and I have a baby but growing YouTube channel called Natural Law with Ryan Mullally. You can see the branding. You can find me there or on X, where I occasionally say insightful or aggravating things, depending on who you are. I don't think this is a really complicated one. I'm actually surprised we're going to spend 2 hours on it. When you ask who's to blame in a hostage situation, it's the one holding the hostage. The Democrats are holding the government hostage. They're the ones to blame. You can try to make it more complicated than that, but it's not.
Okay, cat attack. Okay, well, thanks for being here, and we will get into it, and hopefully Anne shows.
Cat is definitely wants to participate.
Again,
Hold on
yes.
just 1 second.
With that, let us open up the floor and get into it.
Oh wow, my camera just. Okay, never mind. Other camera.
Anybody want to take the other side so we can
not.
jump on the panel? Throw Wick a message, because I feel like asymmetry is a little bit of a bummer. So if anybody in chat feels like they feel strongly the Democrats are not to blame.
She's back. Hopefully we can get this going. Okay, Anne, welcome.
Hi, I'm back. Can you hear me? Oh, that's a nice background.
Yes. What do you have? Introduce yourself.
Oh.
What are your thoughts? And make your argument, please. And we'll get. Now you're green. And now I can't hear you.
I don't know what's going on, so we'll just use the shitty camera and the weird background. Hi, I'm Leftist Blondie. I often have tech issues, so apologies for that in advance. I go by Leftist Blondie. You can follow me anywhere. Social medias will be under that. It's the Republicans' fault, and yeah, we can jump right in.
Go ahead. Open panel. Why is it the Republicans' fault? Go ahead.
Oh,
I think
cool.
if I could start us off, just because obviously my opening statement is that if we have any understanding of the procedure and the facts, that we would clearly agree. And actually, I like the hostage comparison as well. I think that's completely accurate. If my friends on the left, either one or both of you, you can just kind of summarize how we got to where we are now, just to see if we have a common understanding of the facts.
Do you want to start, or do you want me to?
I'll let you start. I know you gave an opening, so I'll let you.
Oh, okay. So my understanding is that there's a few things in it's HB 5371 that are kind of under contention because they end starting November 21st. So some of these credits, especially the ACA credits, aren't being extended past that point. So people are concerned about the premiums affecting people. Like, they're basically concerned about the American public facing the backlash of the premiums.
But I guess my question then is, why is that part of the continuing resolution negotiation? Because this is, just to give people a background, this is what's called a clean CR. And what that means is it's a continuing resolution. It's funding the government with no changes, right? They're not, to your point, I agree with you. It does not end these sunset provisions and extend them, right? That's not what it does. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't have any Republican priorities attached to it. There's no abortion shenanigans. There's no defunding. It is a clean CR. We've had 13 CRs in a row, right? For 13 times in a row, we've passed a CR. This doesn't have any Republican priorities attached to it, but the Democrats are concerned that their priorities are not attached to it. They want to attach priorities to it. They want to extend the ACA subsidies. They want to extend Medicare and Medicaid issues, which might very well be good policy. I don't even think we need to dispute that. I think the point is that the side that wants to add their priorities to the CR is the side that's taking the government hostage. The Democrats might have great reasons for taking the hostage, but they're the ones taking the hostage.
But wouldn't the side that's like unwilling to even talk about negotiations, like, okay, look, I get it. Like, oh, we don't negotiate negotiate with terrorists, but like at some point you kind of have to. I mean, we negotiate with Hamas.
Well-
Why can't we negotiate with Democrats?
Let's just get on the same factual footing here. What Ryan just explained, Ryan, I'm mad at you. You stole my thunder. We're getting there, but it's
My
okay.
bad, buddy. My bad.
Can we all agree here that this is a clean CR that we're dealing with? Does everyone agree with that point?
What do you mean in terms of a clean CR? I mean,
Meaning it is a continuing resolution. Sorry to cut you off. It is a continuing resolution that says the funding will continue at the exact same level and pace as it was prior, and it's going to continue funding for what is another 7 weeks, I think, is what was passed in the House.
And just to add to that, clean means it does not contain any Republican priorities. Like, for example, I would prefer a CR with substantially reduced funding. Like, if I was going to advocate for like my dream CR, it would spend a lot less money. But that priority is not reflected in the CR, right? Like, it's clean, meaning that the Republicans didn't add anything to it. It's just we fund the government as is going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I understand what you're saying but they're not adding anything, but it is a partisan bill. And what we're seeing is that a lot of the things in it are actually discontinuing credits or funds for a lot of things, and we have to take on good faith that in the future those things are going to be reenacted. Sorry,
I gotta keep cutting you off.
Let her finish her point.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, finish your point, and then you can respond. Go ahead, Ultra, please.
That's fine. That was really my point, is that there are things in here that are being discontinued by Republicans that really have no input from Democrats, and we're like kind of at a standstill. And again, like she said, like we're unable to debate it. So,
sorry, Ryan. Let me go real quick.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So are these things that are getting discontinued? Are they getting discontinued because of what's currently in the clean CR, or are they getting discontinued because of the big beautiful bill that was passed through the budget reconciliation process however many months ago?
So it's actually twofold. Under the big beautiful bill, we didn't really see anything for healthcare, as far as I know. Maybe there was something in there that was marginally about healthcare, but it was mostly about Medicare and some other things. And under this plan, under Medicare, the Medicare Improvement Fund, it ends in I think it says like November 22nd, 2025. So the Medicare plan is ending. Now it's being picked up under the big beautiful bill, but those Medicare tax credits or the Medicare credits are ending. And let me bring it, and Social Security as well.
But just to put a focus on Gen Z's question, is the CR doing that? Like, is the CR discontinuing those credits, or were they had a sunset provision and they're just naturally expiring and the CR says nothing about them?
In terms of the tax credit for the ACA, for example, I think that those can continue, but under this, I would actually have to look and see if the big beautiful bill does. But I don't think it does, because does that enact in fiscal year 2026, or is this does that start later down the line? Because I'm pretty sure that that's enacted later down the line. Let me see when those provisions start.
Yeah, in the spirit of just making this a productive conversation, when we say it's a clean CR, it's not discontinuing these things; it is failing to continue them. Meaning, it does not continue things; it allows them to discontinue. Things like the ACA subsidies have what's called a sunset provision, which means they end on their own at a certain point. In the Medicaid context, one of the provisions is something that lets people use Zoom for doctor's visits rather than going in person and still getting coverage. That was a COVID provision. It was an accommodation given to people during COVID that cost something like $25 billion to enact. That it had a sunset. When COVID was over, it would no longer be a thing. The CR doesn't end it. The CR simply fails to extend it, which is a difference, right? Like, that's why we call it clean. It's not that it's ending these provisions. It is merely not addressing them, which is fine. It doesn't address Republican priorities either. It's a clean CR.
Well, I wouldn't consider that a CR, like a clean CR, because it doesn't matter what you want to call it. You can call it ending the provisions. You can call it simply letting them expire. There's still things on the table that Democrats and Republicans haven't come to an agreement about. And as far as allowing people to just use Zoom for doctor's appointments, I mean, fucking come on. That should be the easiest thing to resolve. Like, are you serious? Like, there's going to be people who have long-term effects from COVID who can't go into doctor's offices anymore. People who can't go into doctor's offices because they're getting COVID now still. People who have disabilities who can't go in for that. Like, that should be the easiest thing in the planet to resolve. But Republicans have become so selfish, they're unwilling to come to the table about stupid stuff like that.
So you have that priority. That's fine. I have other priorities. I would like to cut.
Politics.
I would
Yeah, I
like to
have
cut
the
federal
priority to
spending.
continue programs.
Yeah.
I have the priority to continue a lot of the programs that we prior
The
had.
difference is your side is shutting down the government over it. So when
Correct.
we ask who's to blame, you might have good reasons. I'm not going to try to like tell you your reasons are bad here tonight. I don't even think your reasons matter that much. Your side is to blame because your side is the one holding the hostage. If you want to have a policy discussion, there can be a policy discussion, but your side is shutting down the government because they are forcing that policy discussion in the context of the CR. So your side is to blame. That's not. I
Wait,
don't
so
even think it has
forcing the
anything to do with whether or
conversation
not your
is
policy is good.
wait, so forcing the conversation is forcing a shutdown? I don't think that's how that works.
That's exactly how.
Saying,
No, wait. That's
saying,
exactly
hey,
what's happening.
no, because they had time to negotiate these things, and Republicans didn't budge, and they wouldn't have conversations. So now we're both being forced into that because there's no reconciliation between those things.
Right,
There's
because
one side coming to the table, and there's one side not coming to the table. That's the problem.
because Republicans passed their policy initiatives. It was the big beautiful bill, and it has to be throughout time. It has to be re-upped again on the funding. The funding was about to run out. Republicans said we're going to do a clean CR, and once again, I still don't think we're agreeing. Like you guys are saying, oh, just because it's clean doesn't mean it's good. The definition of clean here simply means the funding will continue at the current pace that it is currently set at. There's nothing extra, no poison pills, no fat, no pork, whatever you want to call it. It is a clean, simply saying we're holding our hand on the wheel exactly where we were before. We're just going to continue driving. You may not like the direction the car is driving, and that's what the debate is for, to try and change the direction of the car, but you have to acknowledge it. You have to concede that Republicans right now have offered through the clean CR, we are going to hold the wheel of the car straight. Democrats are reaching over trying to yank the wheel of the car to turn the direction at a time where we're just not at that point.
That's just wrong. Well, first of all, no pork, no fat, anything like that, because I'm vegan, but that's not the issue. The issue is that you're acting as if we're radically changing it or trying to change the course. That's not what happened. We're saying, hey, we want to renew the things that we had before, and the Republicans are going, nope, sorry, our way or the highway. We're not going to negotiate.
So do you acknowledge though that those things that you like that you're talking about, those are policy prescriptions? Yes.
But and a policy prescription is also to discontinue those services, even if it's not directly discontinuing them, allowing them to expire is the same exact thing, principally.
So I hate to go all lawyer mode, but the law just completely disagrees with you, and I'll give you exact hypothetical as to why. If someone is drowning, and you see them drowning, you're standing on the dock, and you have the ability, you can swim, you're strong, you're capable, you can jump in and save them. Do you think the law requires you to jump in and save them, that there's a duty on you? Meaning if you don't jump in and save them, then you are going to be liable for their death?
If you're a lifeguard, yeah.
Yes, that too. But
I'm not talking about lifeguards.
I actually think the law should require you to do that. Second of all, that's a moral issue, not a legal process issue. I think that the law should require you to jump in and save them. This isn't a moral issue, however, this is just an issue on principally whether or not these are the same thing. So letting something discontinue and actively discontinuing it are principally the same. The outcome is the same.
So again, not to nerd out with lawyer mode, but the law just completely disagrees. You can say it's wrong.
I don't give a fuck.
You can
I
say
don't care.
you can say you don't care.
I'm not talking about the law right now. I'm saying that they're principally the same thing. Do you disagree with that?
Oh, completely, because you're equating action with inaction. And to be clear, the law does not impose a duty on you to jump in. We can say you have a moral duty, absolutely, but a legal duty, meaning if you do not jump in, then you're going to be prosecuted for murder because you contributed to this person's death. This is like first year law school type stuff that they teach. That action
don't give a shit. I'm not talking about the law and what the law currently is.
Let me maybe put it in a different way that might be helpful. The reason that you put a sunset provision on a bill, the ACA subsidies, anything. You put a sunset provision on it because Congress didn't agree it should exist forever. They agreed it should exist for a period of time, and then it will expire unless we do something about it. That's what Congress agreed to with these subsidies. Now, you think that they should be extended. That's fine. It's a totally valid policy position, but it is a policy position. The CR is answering the question, should government employees be paid? Should there be government services? Like, I was a clerk. I was a clerk in the court the last time the government was shut down. And I did a criminal trial. And the US Marshals, who had to handle violent criminals, were doing so without pay because the government was shut down. There's real consequences to this. So, what I'm saying is, you have a policy preference, that's fine, but your side has decided that shutting down the government with all those consequences to all those people is an appropriate way to draw attention to your policy preference, whereas the Republicans have many policy preferences that they did not put in this CR. So they offered you something that was a very good faith offer. The counter proposal is, give me what I want or I'll kill the hostage. That doesn't make your side look like they're not the ones holding the hostage. Obviously, you're holding the hostage.
Do the minority Democrats in the House and the Senate have the ability to just shut down the government on their own?
100%.
Oh my God! Holy shit! This is no
1,000%.
This is the most. And I'm not saying you're doing it because you're like disingenuous, but this is the most dangerous point. And I wish the Democrats would stop fucking saying it because it's an unbelievably dangerous thing to say. I actually heard it earlier today, or at the introduction. Sorry, Ultra said it. The idea is that the Republicans control the Senate and the House and the presidency so they could do whatever they wanted. That would be true if they were willing to abolish the filibuster. In fact, if they were willing to abolish the filibuster, they could do all kinds of things. They could get rid of all of Obamacare, which they want to do. They could cut all the federal spending, which they want to do. They could do a nationwide abortion ban, which I'm not personally in favor of, but many of them want to do. They could do all kinds of wild shit if they abolish the filibuster, and they're not doing it. And they're not doing it because the filibuster is a good thing. The filibuster protects us. The filibuster protects our democracy. It's a thing worth respecting. So when you say the Republicans control all three houses, what you're inviting is destruction of the filibuster. Because
I do want to make sure that we don't turn this into a filibuster debate.
We need 4 votes. We need 4 votes. I think it's 4. Tell me if I'm wrong. We need 4 votes to break the filibuster. That's the leverage Democrats have. But if you're going to say it's all the Republicans' fault because they control all 3 houses, they could say, oh, you know what? Turns out we do control all 3 houses. But that's the worst possible outcome. So let's not invite destruction of the filibuster.
I like how
let's
this is a pivot. I like how
that there's actually. It's not a pivot.
It is a pivot.
When you say we control all 3 houses, do you think we have the votes to break a filibuster?
I didn't say that you control a filibuster.
We have the votes to break.
So hold on. This is why I said in the very beginning, let's get on a common factual understanding of the procedure. My very first point I made in my opening statement. If we understand how the procedure works here, you would understand this is 100% Democrat shutdown.
I know.
We didn't get an answer from either of you really about the procedure. Can either of you explain how we got to where we are right now, procedurally?
So what I wanted to bring up was that, like, they could very easily end the shutdown right now under the nuclear option, right?
The nuclear option being, just hold on, just for my audience, elaborate what you mean by the nuclear option. I want to understand what you mean.
The nuclear option is, I have it pulled up over here, is a parliamentary procedure that can lower the required number of votes to invoke closure and a filibuster from 60 to a simple majority of 51. And again, yes, that would demonstrate that one party has power over the other. But they've already demonstrated, the president has already demonstrated that he doesn't care about checks and balances, right? So this would only be furthering his agenda, which, I mean, at this point, if they did something like that, it would only be like reasserting.
So why do you think they're not using the nuclear option? Like you said, why aren't they doing that? They could end the shutdown and just wipe you guys off the board with the nuclear option. Why aren't they doing it?
Because they want to blame the Democrats, obviously.
Why would they need to blame the Democrats if they had total control over the government and could do whatever they wanted? What would be even the point of blaming the Democrats at that point?
Because then they would be blameworthy. Because then they would be blameworthy. Very obviously.
No, because because they also feel threatened by the fact that since Trump has taken office, there have been more special elections that have been won by Democrats. Since he took office, and then moving forward, we have dramatic swings in votes
So
for the
I'm
Democrats. So
two points on this. First, it sounds like neither of you listened at all to what Ryan said about the filibuster, because he had a very eloquent, like 2-minute spiel about how dangerous it is to get rid of the filibuster, and your immediate response was, well, why don't Republicans just go nuclear, nuke the filibuster, and do what they want to open the government again? It's like you played right into it, and I don't even know if you realized
that was Ryan's response.
that Ryan explained why you don't go nuclear, and you said, well, why don't Republicans just go nuclear as your response?
No, and again,
Ultra
I
did,
wanted to
not you.
Ultra did, yeah.
So I addressed that point by both addressing his point and like, quote unquote, falling into what he said. I'm saying that they could do that, right? But then I also backed it up by saying that if they do that option, they can't then blame the Democrats, right? Because then they can take the strongman approach, just like, Trump wants to do. He's already doing that. And by taking the strongman approach, he's not only are they able to, in Trump's words, threaten Democrat programs, right? Because he wants to eliminate more of the more Democrat programs, Democrat-run programs. His words, not mine.
This gets me to my second point I was going to make. Wick, you made a comment about let's not turn this into a filibuster debate. I hate to disagree, but I think the filibuster is core central to this entire shutdown debate right now, because it is the exact mechanism the Democrats are using to shut down the government. That's part A. Part B, I think if Ultra's made a couple points, and this is not an attack on you, you made a couple points about Trump and his disregard for the law and checks and balances and whatnot. I think that's much more of a risk at derailing the debate we're having currently about who is responsible for shutting down the government, which so far I haven't gotten to my prediction yet, but because we're still in phase one, which is that you both are still acknowledging this is the Republicans' fault. Is that right? The Democrats are not at fault here? Or not responsible for the shutdown? That's my point. Who's causing the shutdown?
Okay.
Effectively Republicans.
What do you mean effectively?
Like, there's obviously some, if you want to say that there's some like non-trivial blame on, or some trivial blame on the Democrat side because they're requesting that we continue the programs that we already had before, because when something expires, that means that you renegotiate, you come back to the table, and there's one side not coming back to the table. So if you want to say like trivially, there is a little bit of causation on the Democrat side, sure, but the ultimate responsibility morally is on the Republicans for doing this.
Would it change your mind? Sorry, one quick point, Ryan. Would it change your mind at all if there was any commentary or quotes that we could show you from the Republican leadership, Mike Johnson, John Thune, saying that we want to have these debates, it's just a shutdown is not the place to have them? If they were to say that, just assume, well, hypothetically, if they were to say that, would that change your mind about their position on having these debates?
No, because that's the perfect time to have them, right? They already tried to have these conversations with Trump before the shutdown even began. And I guess they didn't go anywhere because they had them the day before the shutdown, right?
They didn't go anywhere. That's why they're shutting down the government, to force the issue. Exactly right. You got it.
Can I just ask a few clarifying questions? I just want to make sure I understand the position, because I think I got it, but I want to make sure. I think, and tell me if I'm doing any of this wrong, I'm going to try to be as steel-manny as I can. The ACA, Medicare, Medicaid funding at issue is, in your mind, both of you, a really important moral issue that this funding happens. Is that right?
Of course.
No, not morally.
Okay, so it's not
It's not a moral issue.
What is it then?
So it's a financial issue. So, like, when it comes to morals, you're affecting people's pockets. You're affecting the economy. You're affecting people directly with this initiative. You're not just like morally like, oh, it's bad.
So why? No, I'm saying why do you want the subsidies to continue? I was saying I was assuming you want them to continue because it would be good to continue them. It would be morally good to provide this money for healthcare. Is that if that's not why you think we should continue them, I'm happy to listen to why you think we should.
Yeah. So, I mean, from my understanding, if they discontinue these ACA credits, like spending will go up, tax or premiums will go up something like 4.9%, or it may even be higher than that.
No, it'd be a lot higher than that. But yeah, you think that would be bad, and preventing that would be good.
Yes.
Okay. So you have a policy preference that you think is morally good. Got it. And you think
no, it's not morally. This isn't a moral issue. This is a financial issue. This affects the people overall. It hits their wallet, just like the Big Beautiful Bill did, right? So basically they're taking two ways to affect people, two different ways to affect people in the country financially. And they're not really taking into consideration like how it'll actually affect people. I mean, we have so many things that are now piling on to the American people.
And you think it would be good if they took that into account and continued the funding for these programs? That's all I'm getting at. It's just like you think it's good. Okay. So, and you think it's sufficiently good that it's worth shutting down the government to force a debate over it?
So, like, I don't want to use the word good because, like, you're kind of forcing me into a morality argument when it's not.
I think
what word other than good could I possibly use?
I think we can skip the whether it's moral thing or not. Let's move on a little bit. So
like whatever word you want. Like
you could say
this policy is your preference. Fine, your preference for this policy is a sufficient reason to shut down the government to force debate over this publicly.
Yes.
Then you are to blame for the shutdown because
it's
you are shutting down the government in order to force a debate on your policy preference. That's the whole point.
It's not.
So please explain why not then, because you're just saying no, it's not. But we just explain the rationale, explain the argument.
Do you think that if Hamas and the Israeli government came, and said, "Hey, we need to make negotiations on something quick and end things soon," and one party refused to come to the table because they weren't having their demands met, because they were quite literally saying, "Hey, we actually can't get an agreement here unless you guys also come to the table." Do you think that that's the party who's saying, "Hey, you guys actually won't even negotiate with us, therefore why would we come to the table in the first place?" Or do you think it's the person who won't come to the table in the first place's problem?
Actually, I generally think it's the party that's holding the hostages who's doing the wrong thing.
Both hostages. I'm saying that both are saying, we want this thing, we want this thing. This person's saying, I won't come to the table.
Well, in Israel, it's actually literal hostages, and they're being held by Hamas.
I'm not talking about fucking Israel.
Well, you did bring it up.
Don't be retarded. Don't be retarded. You understand the analogy here is just saying that there's two parties. One saying, I won't come to the table in the first place. The other one is saying, hey, we have things we actually really, really want to talk about, but unfortunately, if you can't come to the table, we also can't come to the table.
Here's the exact problem. Here's the problem with your analogy. You're saying the Republicans are refusing to come to the table now. Now is not the time. The time to come to the table was back when they negotiated over the Big Beautiful Bill.
They didn't.
They did. Big Beautiful Bill.
No, no. Just saying, hey, we're gonna pass this shit isn't like coming to the table. What the fuck?
So lawmakers,
they're kind of like strong-armed.
Because you can do reconciliation once, maybe twice a year to pass with a simple bare bones majority. And that's what they did. And guess what? They had the majorities to do that. That was the time to debate policy. They passed the policies that they wanted to pass. And now here we are months later, and you're saying, actually, we're mad that we lost the old policy fight. So now we're going to try and go back and revisit it and try and claw stuff back with a new policy fight, when we're saying, sorry, fight's already been had and you already lost. And you can shut down the government to try and win those policy concessions back, but you have to admit it is the Democrats right now that are the ones that are affirmatively pushing for new policies because they like them. And you guys have agreed these are good policies that you want to see happen. I don't know why that's hard to acknowledge.
No one's not acknowledging that. We both did. What?
Yeah.
So then how are the Democrats not the ones holding the hostage here? If they're saying...
Because we quite literally are saying, hey, now is the time to come back for further negotiations because you guys strong-armed us earlier, so we want further negotiations and you guys won't come to the table.
So let's flip it an exact inverse.
And if you don't come to the table, we're going to hold the government hostage. So you must come to the table.
Right.
Right?
Right. And like I said...
Right. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Like I said, the Republicans are able to end it right now by invoking the nuclear option,
which we're saying we're saying as proud Republicans, we are not going to do that because that's a terrible idea and be horrible for the country. It'd be basically the end of the country.
In your feelings, it's a terrible idea, but it will end the shutdown. So therefore, the Republicans.
Would you like us to? No, seriously, serious question. Would you like us to?
No.
Why do you keep pretending this is an option that should be considered?
This isn't pretending because you have a means to stop the shutdown and you're not invoking it. So again, like how you say it's a morally good thing that the government or that we want the ACA credits to extend. We also have the moral argument that they could end it right now by invoking the nuclear option and then they can just pass it. right?
Yeah. Oh, so you know what? Yeah, that's true. They could take the nuclear option, and then they could just pass the CR, and they don't have to negotiate with you at all about this. And then the next day, they could just remove Obamacare completely, root, stem, and branch from the system. Because without the filibuster, they could do that too. So,
Mhm.
like, the thing about this is you are cursing the leverage that you have. And the leverage that you have, ironically, for all the hate the Republican Party gets right now, is that the Republican Party is unwilling to dismantle a critical guardrail, which you think seems to be a mistake. They should dismantle the guardrail, which is a bold position to take. I think it's a little contrary to your party's messaging, and
No.
frankly, a bit of a head scratcher. But if you're
Wait,
in
and you
favor
think
of
the
the
Republican
Republicans
Party
seizing
is
control of
so
the government,
unwilling to
maybe
dismantle
you can talk
guardrails?
them into it.
Let's
No,
let's
so
Hold on,
like
just go ahead,
again,
Anne. I
the
want to give Anne
reason
a chance to talk. Go ahead.
You think the Republican Party is opposed to dismantling guardrails?
They are opposed to dismantling this guardrail, and you guys are arguing they should, which I find
No,
interesting.
we're not
no,
arguing
no, no,
that
no,
there's.
no. We're not
Also, you're
arguing that they
pivoting.
Don't say
should.
that.
Also, you're pivoting.
That is true.
Yeah, I don't care. I just thought it was funny because the hypocrisy is crazy. Like, oh, we're scared to dismantle this guardrail,
So-
but we're fine with dismantling the other one that requires like the president to be inaugurated.
Hey, we would, me and Ryan, we would love to have a debate with you guys at any time about the administration, the guardrails, Constitution, the founding. And if you pick the topic, you can set the problems. We can do that anytime. Today, we're talking about the shutdown and who is responsible.
Yeah,
And you have
today
already
we're not talking about filibusters, but we're more than welcome to have a debate with you any other time. So let's keep.
How do you think the shutdown's happening in the Senate?
I'm just pointing out a hypocrisy. Are you scared of me pointing out a hypocrisy? Is there a problem there?
The filibuster was brought up by you guys indirectly because the first thing Ultra said in this debate policy-wise, she said the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency, which is technically true if they were willing to invoke the nuclear option and get rid of the filibuster. They are unwilling to dismantle that guardrail, to their enduring credit. I love the fact that they won't get rid of the guardrail, but
Same.
because they won't get rid of the guardrail, that's why that sentence, they control the Senate, is not accurate, because they need 60 votes, not 50, because the guardrail holds. That's why the
Right.
filibuster is relevant. It's central to the conversation because it's the core procedural mechanism that gives the Democrats any leverage whatsoever in this conversation.
Correct.
Right. We
Well,
can have leverage in that way, but if no one is willing to come to the table and talk about the policies, then it
Why
is
should
the
they?
first parties. It's the first parties because that's how you make laws. It's the first party's responsibility to come to the table first and have the conversation.
Okay.
They're not.
When I say why should they, I'm not talking about why should they come negotiate during a government shutdown debate. That's what you're saying, that they
No,
have
they
an
should have
obligation.
before.
You're saying they should have an obligation to come debate when. And so here's the thing: the Republicans could have done that. They could have passed a dirty CR that had all their favorite political priorities in it, and then you'd have an actually
It's
good
not
argument
coming
to say
the table.
that. Yeah, it is. If you're saying that we need to have a political
You
debate
think
about
just
political preference
passing
right
whatever
now,
the fuck you want is coming to the table?
Sorry.
What's coming to the table?
Do they have to pass a law for these subsidies to go away?
No, I didn't say
So-
that. I
so,
said
yeah.
No, she thinks
they
inaction is action.
understand that they're coming up for renewal. That's so fucking disingenuous. So yes, they are refusing to come to the table. They had ample opportunity to come to the table prior to the government shutdown. So it's not about, oh, well, the appropriate time isn't after the government shutdown. Yeah, we realize that, but they didn't come to the table beforehand.
So shutting down
That's
the
the issue.
government to force them to come to the table is a good thing.
Again, like
It's like if somebody forced your hand to do something and then you were like, oh, you're actually responsible because you did the thing, but I forced your hand to do the thing.
Yeah. So tactically,
So burden shifting. That's burden shifting.
tactically, you think that this is shutting down the government, and I think you can just own this. I hear many lefties own this. Shutting down the government to pick this fight is a good decision. That's the view of the most Democrats I've spoken to. Is it not your view?
and really quick too, the view is also that the Democrats are not
I'd
doing
like
enough
answer
to
one
the Democrat. The view right now among the
So
leftist
I'll
base.
answer the one question first
Yeah,
because I'm not going to
okay.
be asked like two different questions.
Go
and
ahead.
then have
Well,
to
I'm
answer
just adding on to the
No,
question.
just,
I'm
anyways,
just let her respond, and then you can add
Okay.
on. Go ahead, Anne.
Right. The question, once again, I already responded to this, was that if one person is forcing your hand to do that, it's not that you're picking the fight willingly. They're not picking the fight willingly. No one ever came to the table.
Okay, I want a lot less government spending. I want like a lot less government spending than we currently have. That's my preference. The Republicans did not pick that fight with this CR. And there's many Republicans who want less spending. They didn't pick that fight because they were trying to keep the government open with a clean CR. They could have. They could have picked that fight. They could have said, "Hey, Democrats, we're not going to do the CR unless you sign on to our preferences." Or, you know what they could have done? They could have horse traded. They could have said, "Hey, you know what? We'll give you the ACA, but we got to get rid of any shred of Planned Parenthood funding. We got rid of most of it. We're going to get rid of the rest of it." Like they could have put a policy preference in there. They didn't. They left a clean CR. So if you want to come to the table, we can negotiate our policy preferences, but you have to recognize that the Republicans haven't done that. They haven't put their policy preferences into the CR.
Right.
They
So
haven't done anything.
Yeah, so I definitely want to address those. First of all, they already strong-armed everybody with the big beautiful bill, not allowing the Democrats to put any input in that. And then they draft like this CR that like is 100% Republican written, partisan. So like what exactly are the Democrats going to be like, what opportunity have they had to actually contribute anything?
It's the same CR that's been signed 12 times in a row. Was it partisan when? No, it's literally the same. What was it partisan when it was signed in the Biden administration? It's the same thing. It literally just says continue the government as is until further notice. Like there's no partisan preferences in it.
And I have a question too. You keep saying this phrase "strong arm," that the Republicans strong armed everybody into the big beautiful bill. If you had to take a wild guess, how many Republicans do you think voted for Obamacare, which is the exact public policy we're talking about right now, how it got passed?
I would have to look.
Okay, I'll fast track it for you. It was 0. So by that logic, did the Democrats strong arm the Republicans into Obamacare becoming the law of the land? And now we're having a debate over whether or not Republicans are strong arming Democrats to undo it. Like, I agree you can have ire for that if you say it's bad to pass things by a simple majority. That's why our position is we should have things like the filibuster to be a check and balance against majoritarian rule by a simple majority, to actually put in a 60 vote requirement, 60% requirement to actually get stuff done. We're saying that's a good thing, but like, are we seeing the contradiction here though of this idea of strong arming? So you don't think the Democrats strong armed their way into Obamacare? You don't think that?
No, because that makes sense. That makes sense for like a healthcare.
So it's pure politics then. It's all it is pure politics. You guys, you have your political. We're talking about fundamental principles here as to how to run a good political system. You're just talking about purely, if it's something that happens that I like politically, then I'm okay with it because it's a good outcome that I like. Basically, system be damned. That's why I think you keep bringing up the nuclear option, because it sounds like that's something you'd be in favor for to get your political preferences done.
No. So when I say that they could do that, from a standpoint of where you're coming from, it's the fault of the Democrats because they are the one who are not signing. They're the one who's not agreeing. They can only have 5 more votes to give. But on the other side, the Republicans have an option to do this. Now, if they do it, they no longer can blame Democrats. They no longer can sit there and like basically tell the public that, or for some reason keep telling people that they want money for illegal immigrants, which doesn't make any sense. So they can no longer lie about that. They can't like further damage the reputation of the Democratic Party because like we see it. We see the writing on the wall. We see that the Democrats are slowly making a comeback in terms of the polls. We see that people are being elected and they're afraid of the midterms. We get it, right?
Why would they be afraid of the midterms? What would happen if the midterms went badly?
For who? For
the Republicans? Yeah, if it went badly, what would happen if they lost the midterms? Like in your mind, why would they be afraid of that?
Because we can see a return of a Democratic majority.
And
right?
if that happens, then they won't be able to pass the laws they want, right?
Like maybe, right?
Yeah,
because
if the Democrats get the majority of the Senate and the House, then it would be very hard for Republicans to pass laws. Would be one reason to fear the midterms going badly. Does that make sense to you?
No, because we wouldn't have that, because on the one hand, we actually have one of our Democrats that are on your side in the Republican bill. So we have centrists who are willing to vote on the Republican side. On the other hand, we have
why would they be afraid of them? Why would they be afraid of losing the midterms if passing laws would be just as easy if they lost control of the government? I'm honestly just confused as to what your point is now. I'm not trying to be an asshole. Just like I want to understand what you're trying to say. Like,
Because we
You
can
said-
clearly see that the Democrats are willing to negotiate, the Republicans are not. So we have 100% loyalty to Trump, to the regime under the Republicans. Under the Democrats, we can see that they, in most cases, do have will actually side with the Democrats on some issues. So we have, like, if you take in terms of the big beautiful bill, like when they were in a standstill on that, they just easily just asked everybody. There were I think there was something like 6 people who were kind of on the fence of not voting, and no matter what they did, they got told that they had to do it because of XYZ. I don't know why, but they ended up voting 100% for it, right? So we know that Trump is willing to puppeteer his people to do what he wants.
So go ahead.
I'm trying to make sure I understand. So the Republicans are afraid of losing seats in the midterms and are this unified, maniacal machine that's just trying to, twirl their mustaches and destroy the country. And that's why they're not abolishing the filibuster and passing every law they could imagine right now when they have the opportunity to do so, and there's nothing the Democrats could do to stop them.
No, so that's kind of a mischaracterization of what I said. So basically, at its core, the Republicans
what could the Democrats do to stop the Republicans from passing any law they wanted if they abolished the filibuster? What would the Democrats' recourse be in that scenario?
So I think that this only ends this specific filibuster. It's not like every filibuster ever.
But they could end every filibuster. They don't have to end this specific one. They could end them all.
Quick, I do want to read a couple super chats because people are paying me money to talk right now, and I do want to get that in. But no, one of the issues with the nuclear option is it always just destroys the president for almost ever. That's why it's called a nuclear option. But let's read these real quick. $10 from Alexander Wrin to say, did the Republicans allow the country to shut down on October 1st, 2013, after the Democrats gave them more than they even asked for? Also, isn't Congress the lifeguard in the drowning person scenario? $10 more from Alexander Wrin says, if Congress is a lifeguard and their job is to pass a bill or get the CR passed, then it sounds like it is their fault if they can't get an agreement on a CR. And finally, $5 from Alexander Wrin. Didn't Congress agree to stop funding the government if they couldn't agree on a CR? Isn't this the same as a sunset on ACA?
So let's try and come at this from another angle. Let's do the exact inverse hypothetical. Let's say you've got a Democrat president, Democrat majorities in both houses, but not the 60-vote majority. Heck, we can just take this back to like 2021, 2022. Biden had all 3. If Biden were to pass something, strong arm is the word you guys like to use, by a bare majority, passes something like, I don't know, Build Back Better. And fast forward a few months, Democrats have the majority. They're saying, we want to continue funding the government at the same level, nothing inserted in there, just the same current level, clean CR. And Republicans say, we're not going to vote with you to do that unless you agree to a nationwide ban on abortion. Whose fault would that be? Who would be responsible for shutting down the government there?
Who would be at fault for shutting down the government? I mean, I don't know. We would kind of be in the same situation, right?
Well, you guys are saying right now in this situation, it's Republicans' fault because they have all 3 of the bodies, the White House, House, and Senate. I just did the exact opposite, said the Democrats now control all 3, but the Republicans are holding the government hostage unless they get a nationwide abortion ban. And now all of a sudden it's complicated and we don't know.
Yeah, because it's a completely different set of morals, right? So the thing is like
Go ahead.
Sorry, go
finish
ahead.
your point, then Anne. And I'm struggling here. There's an answer to your question, but I'm trying not to put my thumb on the scales. But go ahead. Finish your point.
So
and then yeah.
Okay. So the point I was in, there's like a fundamental difference between we're doing this positive thing for the people of America. We're doing this positive thing that'll affect them financially. Whereas we're doing this thing to actually take rights away from people. So there's a difference in morals and fundamental in those things when it comes to the Democrats saying, well, we want to pass this bill because it helps people. Whereas the Republicans are saying we want to take money from here and put it over here. And then we're going to put all this money in ICE and we're going to take money away from these social programs. So it's harm is being done overall, whereas
Okay.
and all the policies that the Democrats have passed have pretty much been in favor of the middle and lower class, right?
Okay, so your answer is it's pure politics. Basically, whoever's politics I don't like, it's always going to be their fault. That's your answer I just heard. Anne, I'd be curious to hear your answer
Go
to
ahead,
this
Anne.
inverse hypothetical.
Well, I think that was a pretty bad mischaracterization, but that's fine. I'll ignore it. Look, the problem is if the Democrats in that scenario said, we're actually refusing to even come to the table with you guys and discuss this, then yes, that would be their fault. But that
You think
the
Democrats should come?
never done that. Yes, I think Democrats should have open and honest conversations because I think that Republicans actually view fetuses' lives who are not sentient as valuable human beings, even though Democrats might not. So yes, they should still come to the table. That doesn't mean they have to necessarily come to a decision that both parties are perfectly fine with at the end of the day. But Democrats have never once said, hey, we are proactively not coming to the table.
So what if they? So you say they come to the table. What if they don't agree? What if Republicans say, unless you give us a nationwide ban, we are not going to vote to end the shutdown? They came to the table. They tried to negotiate. It failed. What next? Who's at fault?
Well, then on that, and in that case, it would be both for not coming to some sort of agreement that they could come to.
So you're unironically advocating, saying that there should be an actual discussion by the Democrats. If Republicans come out and say, maybe tomorrow we got to call our congressman and say, hey, we got people. Okay, I am, but you're going to pivot.
That is important because that speaks to how much you probably value a fetus's life. So if you literally
we can have the abortion discussion whenever you want, but you're pivoting away from the point
No, this
here.
is not an abortion discussion. This is just saying that if you
That's
have
my point. It's not an abortion discussion. You're pivoting.
Well, let Anne finish and then you can respond.
I'm not
Go
making
ahead,
it. I'm not making it an abortion discussion. I'm saying that if you believe that there is murder, if I believed that 600,000 people were being murdered every year and no one would come to the table to talk to me about it, yeah, I would think you're fucking insane. I would think that that's your fault for not coming to the table. So yes, I think we should come to the table with Republicans, even if I very strongly disagree with them that it's murder. Absolutely.
And if Democrats don't cave and ban abortion nationwide, then
I didn't say that. If that's so, oh my God, this is so dishonest.
You're saying there should be a negotiation. I'm saying what if the Republicans don't agree to the position you take during the negotiation, and we say, well, you're not agreeing to a full nationwide ban, therefore we're not giving you the votes to end the shutdown.
I already answered this question.
You pivoted and deflected, but the audience can make up their own mind. It's okay. We can move on.
Yeah, your retarded audience can make up their mind.
Maybe
the answer to the question was yes. At that point, if no one could come to an agreement on either side, then it would be both sides' fault. However, if one side decided not to come to the table in the first instance, then yes, that would be their fault.
So I guess my question is, if you want this, if you think there should be a negotiation, and I'm entertaining this, by the way, because I think we've already reached the point in the conversation where we've agreed the Democrats are taking this hostage. You think you're doing it for a good reason. We don't. But I actually think that resolves the debate prompt. So we might as well talk about something else. So talking about something else, if there was going to be an actual negotiation, what would you give up? What Republican priorities would you give up?
Well, I don't know if I have any interest in continuing this conversation. Maybe Ultra can, because I just keep getting misrepresented. Maybe Ultra wants to be misrepresented.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and if we're done, we're done. But that's totally up to you.
You can be dishonest. That's okay.
I mean, your chance to correct the dishonesty is with the words that you speak, but I don't think anyone's really.
I have multiple times.
Okay. There are other questions at hand. Is who do you think the public will blame for this, regardless of who you think is at fault? So maybe we can transition to that.
Yeah, I mean, polling data is pretty clear. They're blaming Republicans, which is completely politically illiterate. I actually Googled it as well to see how much of the public actually even understand what the filibuster is, what it does, how many votes it takes to overcome it. Answer is about 25%. So it does not surprise me that the public, because they actually, and I think our opponents are actually a very good representation of the general public's feeling on this. They say they see Republican president, Republican Senate, Republican House. If government shut down, therefore Republican government, therefore Republican fault.
Sure. Just real quick. Real quick. $20 from Alexander Wren to say this. The bad faith here is fucking atrocious. You should be ashamed. Passing a new law is nothing like negotiating the continued funding of something that's going to sunset when you can't get a new bill through. Thank you for the $20.
Yeah. Actually, I do have one more question for the ladies here. Well, first, let me ask this, just simple yes or no. I think I know both your answer. Do you think Donald Trump is currently executing a fascist takeover of the United States?
It's irrelevant.
Why is it irrelevant? Well, okay, the Republicans are all, as a party, are executing the fascist takeover of the United States. Do you think that's true, yes or no?
Well, this like smug weirdo can laugh. That's irrelevant to the conversation. It's much like if I made this completely about an abortion debate instead of, just making it about the fact that we should come to the table if you want to talk about abortion.
Why is it irrelevant? We're talking about the Republican policy to keep the government open based on the Big Beautiful Bill that was
that's
passed.
All we're talking about.
Do you think the Big Beautiful Bill is a fascist takeover in the country?
I'm not answering that, but Ultra can.
No, because fascism isn't like a policy; it's a set of ideas, right?
Do you think it's moving us towards the fascist takeover?
There's really no fascist takeover because it's an ideology. It's not actually like a system of government. So the system of government we're moving away from because we're a constitutional republic, right? That's what we operate under, but we're moving away from the Constitution.
Okay.
So we're no longer going to be abiding against the Constitution. So fascism, is an ideology that he can rule by, but it's not like a system of government.
Let me put it super simple. Wick, I'm sorry. It looks like you want to say something. I just want to say this super simply. Is the orange man doing mean and bad things that you don't like?
That's a weird way to frame it, man, because yes, obviously, but that does not the same as a fascist takeover.
I'm framing it because they're
different.
I'm framing it that way because they're dancing around the question. So
did
okay,
Obama
so you
do weird and bad. Did the big bad black man do things you didn't like?
I don't think anyone said that, but let's keep it focused. Let's keep it focused. Let's keep it focused.
The problem is, hold on,
I'm not engaged.
Just real quick. Okay. The problem is we're not focused, and I want to refocus us again. So you admitted, or you said that according to polling data, it seems to you that Republicans are the ones getting blamed for the shutdown, regardless of who's actually at fault. Does the panel agree? Is there a consensus on that? Or is this something we all...
No, it's not the majority of Americans. No.
So you disagree that the majority of the Americans are blaming the Republicans for this?
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers now. It's only 39%.
And what's the opposite?
The opposite is, it's 30% for, I think, agnostic. Let me see. I had it pulled up here. And then like a 30% for Democrats. So it's less than the majority.
But it's still plurality, right?
What do you mean by it's still a plurality?
Do you know what a plurality is?
I'm asking what you mean in this context.
No, I'm asking if you understand the concept of a plurality, because you just gave these numbers saying Republicans are not being blamed. It seems you don't understand the concept of plurality.
If I say, well, you can act retarded, but if I say, oh, I'm going to the bank, and you don't know if I'm meaning I'm going to the riverbank or the financial institution, and then I refuse to elaborate and go, you don't know what a fucking bank is, I'd probably come across as a dick. So do you want to answer the question of what you mean by a plurality in this context?
I will happily answer the question. A plurality here means the largest group that is getting the blame are the Republicans, which, and the numbers you gave was 39. Sounds like the other two were 30 and 30. They say they don't know, 30 say Democrats. Therefore, Republicans at 39 is a plurality of the votes.
So it's just the largest set of groups, but
that's what a plurality means. That's why I ask you, and you seem to not be able to answer it.
What do you mean? Yeah, because if you use the word in the context and then I ask you for clarification, you come across as a dick if you don't actually clarify. So still doesn't matter. You claimed earlier that it was the majority, and it's not the majority.
I didn't say a majority. I said they were getting the majority of the blame.
Okay, so they're not getting the blame by the majority, though. You want to make that clear?
Majority of the blame is an accurate way of stating the exact poll numbers you just read.
I'm asking you a question. You're conceding that it's not the majority. The majority of people are not blaming the Republicans, just to be clear, right?
Correct, because that's not what I said. Okay. You can try. You just had a wait. You just had a whole side tangent meltdown crash out over being mischaracterized, misrepresented.
Meltdown crash out? Oh, I'm crashing out as we speak right now. I'm losing it.
We can.
So in a perhaps futile attempt to talk about something where we don't already have a agreement to the answer of the question, since we resolved the debate prompt, will the Republicans or the Democrats ultimately take more of the blame? I actually think it's not necessarily going to be the right question, because the next thing that's going to happen is that Donald Trump is going to start to acquire leverage in the debate. And the way he's going to acquire leverage in the debate is he's going to start firing people. And once he starts firing people, the Democrats will probably cave. So I think that that's probably how this shutdown ends, and people will blame him or not. But that's my bold prediction. I don't think that it's going to last as that long once leverage starts being deployed on his side.
Yeah, see, that's why it's the Republicans' fault, right? Right?
How does that follow?
Because in the case that Donald Trump is able to start firing people, they can then backlog and stock the government with loyalists. Because earlier this year, they actually released the Office of Personnel Management.
So they shouldn't do that? They shouldn't fire people to get leverage in the shutdown negotiation?
I mean, why would I agree to people losing their jobs? They've already fired people.
Okay.
But like, do you understand?
What I'm trying to point out is that you think it's bad to fire people to get leverage in a shutdown negotiation, but it's fine to shut down the government in a shutdown negotiation, which is why this is like so confusing to me as a topic. Like, yeah, if you shut down the government, the other side is going to attempt to get leverage in a debate with you.
Let me read couple super chats, and then we will try to continue the conversation as best we can. $20 from Alexander Rin. Could one of you two please ask questions I'm saying in chat? They won't answer me because they can't. Use my super chats, please. Then $5 from TL1524 to say, I'm just going to say it. If this debate isn't proof of why we shouldn't repeal the 19th, I don't know what will be. This is so bad faith. Thank you for the $5. Okay, I'm going to jump in a little here, even it out. That's okay. Do you guys mind?
Yeah. Did we lose her? Is she gone now?
I think she's gone. Yes.
Okay.
I have to point out. I say she's crashing out. She vehemently denies it, and then rage quits a minute later. I just want to make that observation. But yes, Wick, please.
She did tell me that she needed to go at 9 about 30 minutes ago. That's why I've been trying to find someone, right? So I don't think it was necessarily you. But there's a couple things that's been bothering me in the framing of how we're dealing with this. Like you mentioned, and I'll just pick on you for a moment, Gen Z, because you're the one here, right, that I remember, right, more, because, again, I'm trying to do 3 different things at once, so bear with me, please.
Hey, all good.
If I mischaracterize you, Soy Pill's going to come in, by the way, and jump in, so I don't have to filibuster too long. But if I mischaracterize you, please correct me. I might have gotten it wrong. But you said, in a question, a hypothetical, if the Republicans had held hostage, right, or who would be responsible if the Republicans refused to sign the CR unless an abortion ban was added to the CR? Is that a correct characterization of your question? Yeah,
in a situation where you've got a Democrat president, Democrat majorities in the Congress, yes.
I think the difference here is that what the Democrats are objecting to is they're allowing a current bill that already exists, a current law that is already on the books, to pass away without a debate. And that is fundamentally different than adding a new law that does not yet exist onto the thing. These are different things. You understand that? They're not the same. You're not comparing apples to apples. They're apples to oranges in this case.
For sure, in the sense that one requires an affirmative stance you're taking, the other is just requiring, the omission, the inaction, where it's letting the stuff expire. But okay, you could just replace my example then of the abortion ban, replace it with any Republican-favored program that you like that is naturally sunsetting, and now Republicans are forcing a shutdown in order to keep it alive. What if that's our hypothetical? I can't think of one off the top of my head. But
like, when we talk about who is responsible at the end of the day, if you are the party who is in power, do you think you have greater responsibility to get laws passed than the party who is not in power? Do you think there's a fundamental difference
within the constitutional framework? Yeah.
So you agree?
There's no responsibility to stop a law from sunsetting. It sunsets all by itself.
But you have a responsibility to get the CR passed, correct?
Within the constitutional framework, which includes the filibuster.
Sure, but you have
The
the
60 vote
that is
majority.
the party in power has a responsibility to keep the government funded, to keep it going, to keep it running, right? To keep the make the trains
I
run on
actually
time.
think,
Yes.
Rick, the point you're making is, I thought we'd get to this point in the debate more naturally, but since we're here, one of the weird things about the Democrats taking
Okay,
the
can you
government
just answer my
hostage,
question just real quick?
yeah, I'm attempting to, is that the Democrats care more about the hostage than the Republicans do in some ways. And what I mean is, a lot of Republicans are pretty okay with a shutdown. Like, a lot of Republicans are pretty
Okay, I'm not
okay
asking who's
with the
okay. I'm
government
going to
getting
ask my
limited.
question again.
So, no, the question is,
I'll just
do you
ask your
think
question
that
again
we
once
have
you're done. Finish.
an obligation to cave to your demands because you want the government to, you won't sign on the clean CR? No, I don't think they do.
Okay,
They
I'll
do,
ask my
though.
question again, right? Do you think that the party in power has a greater responsibility than the party who isn't in power in order to keep the government funded and running? Is it one of their core responsibilities as congressional elective representatives? Yes or no?
Not in a way that impacts this scenario.
Okay, well, I
Correct.
disagree. I fundamentally disagree.
Because what if so? Because
Well,
the
if I could
scenario you're
elaborate
laying,
on why I disagree, right? If I could elaborate
okay,
real
go
quick
ahead,
on
and then
why
I'll
I
respond.
disagree,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
go ahead.
because funding the government and keeping the trains running on time, to use a turn of phrase, is what keeps the wheels on the bus. Like the government has agreed, passed a lot of laws to do a lot of things. We have a military, we have a intelligence agencies, we have national park services, and all of these things require funding. All of these things are based on the government has, again, the people have elected the government has voted on these things, they've voted to get these things going. They have a responsibility, the government has a responsibility to fund these things because they've been voted on, right? They've been passed by laws and things like that. So fundamentally, I think the Republicans in this case, because they have all the power, have more of a responsibility to pass a CR and to do what is necessary to pass a CR. Now, we can argue on whether or not, and to Ryan's point, whether or not tackling the sundown laws around the ACA and Medicare are what's required here, right? Like, should they do that specifically? But when we talk about responsibility as a core concept, I think the party in power just has more.
No, the thing is, to the extent they have more, and that's why I said I don't think it matters, to the extent that there's responsibility there, that responsibility was honored by giving a clean CR. They could have given a dirty CR. They could have given a CR with all kinds of Republican priorities attached to it. They didn't. Right? Like,
Yeah,
that would have been obviously them taking advantage of the situation and trying to leverage the shutdown against the Democrats. They gave a clean CR. I'm not sure.
I don't think the clean CR resolves them of their responsibility. Like, so if you know for a fact that your bill will not be passed unless you do X, like just refusing to do X or refusing to even talk about X, is a shirking of responsibility, in my opinion. And to be clear, the reason why the House won't come together to talk about this isn't because of the shutdown. It's because Thomas Massey has the votes to force the release of the Epstein files. That's why they're not bringing this to discussion. It has nothing to do with the ACA. It has nothing to do with the CR. It's because as soon as Congress gets into session, they're going to vote to release the Epstein files.
So, is Soy joining?
Yeah, Soy's joining
I
us.
can't tell.
Actually, I have a question about that.
What up, Soy? Good to see you, buddy. Long time.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, just to be clear, I fully will concede that I do not know what has been said already. I don't want to assume any of your positions, but I've been summoned by Wick.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
So just to get you on track where we are, we're talking about who is responsible for the government shutdown, the Republicans or the Democrats, who is going to be blamed, the Republicans or the Democrats, regardless of who's responsible, and also which party has more responsibility in order to pass a CR and keep the government funded, the Republicans or the Democrats. All these things are we talked about and to be covered to various extents. This is kind of like last minute. I'm a little flustered right now, so maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you guys just want me to say what I think, and I mean, I guess
then
if
we'll
you
get
are
into
already
it.
in the
Yeah, man. Fire
essentially, like in terms of whether or not they could pass a CR and negotiate things, I think they had, since May to do that, since March. and they have yet to find the compromise that that they should have been discussing as part of their job for the past 6 months. Republicans, if that wasn't clear, they have a majority in House, Senate, and they own the executive branch. If they wanted to, they could use the nuclear option, and they're not doing that. Whether that is for bipartisan reasons, I highly doubt. I think they just don't really want this to happen yet. And yes, they're not confirming a certain House rep right now because they don't want the Epstein files to come out. But I don't know how long they can keep delaying about that. But I think ultimately they own this, and they're just straight up lying about the reasons why the Democrats aren't compromising. They're saying it's because they want illegal aliens to have healthcare, and this just fundamentally is not true. It's not even in the bill. So
we're 100% on the same page, by the way, because I think I brought up all of those points. So yeah, we're 100%
not to stereotype, but I
page.
knew you were on my team just when I looked at you.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. We're good.
It's on purpose.
We're good.
To try to catch up a little bit to what we've already talked about. I think, in my mind, the first prompt was who's more to blame for the shutdown, and
who's responsible.
Who's responsible? And what I said was, the Democrats have a policy preference. They would like these healthcare subsidies to continue. They'd like Medicare, Medicaid funding to continue. They have a policy preference. And in order to force a debate or to get concessions as to those policy preferences, they have withheld their votes from a clean CR. Do you disagree with any of that?
You mean they wouldn't vote for the stopgap measure?
Well, I mean, how about this? Do you agree it's a clean CR? It doesn't have any Republican policy preferences attached to it.
Only insofar as it's just going to, yes, but it's pushing the football down the road. What's the word? Pushing it down the road. Like it's like what?
Can down the road.
And this, what Chuck Schumer said about this, and I actually completely agree, is there's no difference between the voting on this now or voting on it in 2 weeks. The only reason they want that CR is not because they're going to, and we're going to negotiate. And we'll have it all figured out then. It's because they want to kick the can down the road because they had months and months and months to figure this out, and they didn't do it. And this is not going to. That's not going to be the delimiting factor. They just don't want all the heat that comes from the shutdown. That's the only reason they want that.
And forcing that issue is worth shutting the government down over.
Yeah, obviously. That's why the Democrats are doing it.
Which is why my metaphor of this was that, when you look at a hostage situation, the person who's to blame is the person taking the hostage. Who's to blame for the shutdown? The Democrats, because they're holding the government hostage. And I don't actually think it's more complicated than that.
No, it is more complicated.
I can flip the analogy back on you real quick. I'll respond, and then you can say your piece. Sorry, what was your name actually? Ultra. Nice to meet you. You can flip this analogy on 180 and say the Republicans are holding 17 million people's healthcare hostage right now, and the Democrats are not trying to negotiate with that, or they're trying to negotiate out of that. Like, who's to blame then? Like, if you use that analogy, it really just depends on how you frame it. I don't think that's fair.
Are you sure you weren't watching? Because are you sure you were watching? You're basically saying everything
I just finished a different stream. Yes.
Yeah, that's funny. That's so funny.
Well, the thing is, the Republicans could have, but didn't put their priorities into this CR. Like they have policy preferences that they'd like to pass. I know, I, for one, would like to cut spending in a whole lot of areas where it wasn't cut. We could have attached this to the CR. We didn't.
Yeah, but they knew it would never. If it's not passing based on the government shutdown, impasse right now. Obviously, if they put even more agenda into the CR, it definitely wouldn't pass. The reason it's clean, insofar as not putting the partisan stuff in, is because they're trying to frame it as, look, the Democrats are refusing to compromise, which you clearly either have bought into or believe. Either one, it doesn't matter. The point is, they're doing this because they want to kick the can down the road. They could have negotiated and had some sort of deal before the shutdown happened. They refuse to do that because they don't want the repercussions of what is happening right now with the hospitals closing, with the TSA not working, all of the shutdown stuff. They say, no, look, this is the Democrats' fault. And the reason that's the reason they're doing this, or the indication of this, is if you now look at these government websites where they're potentially violating the Hatch Act and just saying this is the radical Democrats trying to appease the left and posting this all over the websites. Like, this is very clearly them trying to just paste everything on it. It's not them trying to negotiate and get a way out of it.
But as you know, these sunset provisions were not new. They were put into the laws to begin with. Congress didn't agree that these things would exist indefinitely, as much as so many government programs do exist indefinitely, even if they're supposed to be temporary. These ones had sunset provisions. There's no guarantee you get these things forever. That's what a sunset provision is.
I understand that, but that's irrelevant to the fact that everyone knew that they would sunset, and they should have negotiated their way of extending this.
And the leverage that the Democrats are using to force that negotiation is the government shutdown. That's the leverage the Democrats are using.
As opposed to
but
what
you're
leverage?
acting like it's like a negative. You're acting like it's like a negative.
The prompt
program,
was just
though,
who's to
right?
blame. Like that's sufficient.
And
They're
sounds like
so
the
Soy.
Democrats are the ones using the shutdown as leverage, so they are the ones to blame.
And
So
also,
when
it sounds
when
like
we're
Soy, you've
talking
already
about-
kind of conceded that point that it's the Democrats that are the ones that are not providing the votes, but you're just saying it's a good thing because they're fighting for 17 million people's health care.
Yeah, but again, I can put this exactly back on you and say, well, the Republicans are refusing to provide the health care and refusing to compromise and pass a resolution that actually makes sense. Like, this is not, the Democrats are to blame because they're the ones who are not voting for the thing. The Republicans aren't voting for the thing on the other flip side. Therefore, they're just the blame in this weird analogy where it's whoever is not providing the vote for the thing they want, it's somehow to blame them. Then you can say the same thing about Republicans. The reason Republicans are to blame is because they have control over Congress. They had months to figure out some sort of negotiation for this, and they didn't do it. And if they wanted to, they could use the nuclear option and pass it right now, and they're not.
I guess
that's the point that
I don't think they should, but they could if they wanted to.
I guess
There's a reason they're
just
not, though, because they want to try to blame this on the Democrats.
We're going to have to just save these clips then for the next time Democrats have the majorities, that Republicans can just basically offer whatever policy they want and say, if you don't concede, if you don't, come to the table and negotiate like we've been hearing all night. You keep saying they've had months to come to a deal. And so
the shutdowns in the past with Obama, he did come to a deal and he did compromise with the Republicans.
And I'm sure,
unless you want to say that's negotiating with terrorists,
no,
and I don't think that
I'm
is.
sure there. You don't. Do you think the shutdown will go on indefinitely? There'll be a deal eventually. We're just talking about who's to blame for where we are right now. And I do think the party that's holding the hostage is the one to blame. And I don't even think you disagree with that, because I think you admit, because you're a good faith person, you admit that that's the leverage the Democrats are using. So you might think that it's a good thing they're doing it, but that doesn't mean they're not the ones who are responsible.
The only
for
problem
the
I have with your framing there is that you're calling it the Democrats holding them hostage, which is like it's not a hostage situation if the Republicans specifically have a way out of this, and two, the Republicans had months and months and months to figure something out about this and refused to do it. And when the shutdowns happen under Democratic presidents, time and time again, you'll see they'll immediately come to some sort of like policy conclusion versus like you look at like what they're actually doing with a leverage, why they're using this leverage. It's not like it's the opposite. It's like Obama's going to pass healthcare, so we'll shut down the government. So I don't know. Like I don't agree with the framing as this is a terrorist hostage taking situation. But yeah, like obviously one side is using leverage over the other. The minority has that power, and I will concede this: the nuclear option, as much as that is something that could do, is something that now sets the precedent of we only need a 51 vote majority, and therefore kind of reduces bipartisanship. And I don't think that's why Republicans aren't doing it. But if that is why, I would agree that's a good thing that they're not doing it.
Isn't it funny that the big bad fascist Republicans are not using the nuclear option when they could? It strikes me as odd. They could just seize control of the whole governmental machine any day, and they just choose not to.
I think it makes them look better right now to not do it. That's why.
Who gives a shit how you look when you have total control of the government? Like the optics no longer matter. The fascists would have total control of the government.
Because
who gives a shit how it looks?
So we have a constitution that actually backs up the rights of the people. So even though you can like try to instigate like a total takeover, unfortunately we are still covered under the constitution. And it doesn't matter like what they do in terms of like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Because the Constitution does clearly state that the people, the power does belong with the people, so we are able to take back the government any time, and they know that. But you're kind of looking at this from a very surface level position, like, Democrats won't vote. Yes, they did it. But you're kind of like pushing aside the option that at any point Republicans could invoke the nuclear option and end it, right? So yes, they are to blame because they're not doing that. And also,
to extend my metaphor, the police could shoot the hostage at any time and end the hostage negotiation. I just think it's good and noble of them not to. Just like I'm grateful for these good and noble Republicans who are not abolishing the filibuster given this provocation. So yeah, I think it's good not to shoot the hostage and try to avoid it. I'm glad the Republicans are taking that approach.
Just for my edification, and perhaps I'm incorrect, but there have been actual votes on these bills, right? So it's not they're not holding hostage by the filibuster. These CRs have had votes on them, and they have failed to pass.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Democrats keep voting against them.
Okay, so I have a question. If the Republican, and this is ad absurd. Wait, real quick. This is an absurd question, but I just want to establish like your argument. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. If the Republicans had a bill that's like shoot every other person, and all the Democrats voted no. Is it the Democrats' fault for voting no on what they seem to be an unreasonable bill, or is the Republicans' fault for not being able to compromise and write a bill that people would vote on? This is an absurd argument, I understand, but I'm just here, like, in this completely absurd hypothetical.
And are you comparing that to the continuing resolution?
I'm not comparing it to that. I'm saying in this hypothetical
in general,
this is how it happened. This is like
outside. I'm sure there are bills that are so bad that it's clear that there's no moral gray area. It's not a policy preference. I'm sure there are things that are like, if one side was passing the law to reestablish slavery, I think we could all agree that's so bad that whatever the other side is doing,
right?
And we're not going to worry about it.
And it's not a gotcha. The point is,
so you're not answering the question, though.
No. I think he's
I absolutely answered the question.
He's addressing it correctly in the sense of, yeah, obviously there's something that would be too far, but then where is the line where you blame the person for writing bad policy and where you blame the Democrat for voting no on a bad policy, right? Like, where does that exist? Because obviously at one point you do understand, at a certain point it does become that. You would not say that in this case, but why is it not that case? Why
if you look at the things at issue, like one of them when I talked about it, and there's a lot of things at issue, so I'm going to pick one. We could talk about others, but like, one of the things is funding for Zoom doctor's appointments that was created during COVID, during a pandemic. That's going to lapse. Mm-hmm. Now, there's arguments that that's just a good thing in the modern world to have, especially for rural people and the elderly. That's a fine policy argument. There's a fine policy argument on the other side to say, well, you know what, that's not the sort of thing we need to be spending federal money on, and we should be doing something differently. But none of that even comes remotely close to the hypotheticals that you suggested.
Okay, we don't agree. Hold on, you just singled out something there that I think is agreeably disagreeable, right? Do we need funding for Zoom doctors? I think there's plenty of good that comes from that. I would say we should support it, but I think you could have a reasonable disagreement with that. But cutting 17 million people off of Medicaid from that expansion, Medicare and Medicaid, is not, I think, agreeable in the same sense of that Zoom thing. I think you picked one thing that is disagreeable, and now we're moving on to, should we shut down a totality of rural hospitals in a lot of these states, which is insane from a perspective, at least from my point. And that is why this is I would put the blame on the Republicans, is what they're doing is so egregious that the Democrats voting no is not holding the Republicans hostage. It's, hey, we are fighting tooth and nail to make sure that millions of people maybe don't die, which is a very different story.
Okay, I have one question. I have one question. This is for Ryan and Gen Z. Did the Republicans hold the bill hostage that the Democrats, the short-term funding bill led by Senate Democrats that failed to pass on September 30th and October 1st by a tally of 47 to 53 along party lines, had that bill passed, it would have funded the government for further, right? We wouldn't be in the shutdown. The Republicans were the ones who voted no. Did they hold that bill hostage? Are they the hostage takers?
What was attached to it?
Don't know.
It's all of the policy prescriptions that they're talking about now is what they're demanding Republicans concede to.
So the Republicans held those policy prescriptions hostage and refused to fund the government because they refused to vote yes on this bill that would have funded the government. They held it hostage.
Because it was a dirty CR as compared to the Republicans' clean CR. Yeah.
That's the difference.
What makes it?
That's
what
a big
makes
difference.
it a dirty CR? So what policy? So in one case, you're.
No, go ahead.
In one case, you're saying that the policies or the CR matters, right? What's in it, but then in this case, you're saying that it doesn't matter because why? They want the ACA to lapse. What issue do you have with the ACA? I mean, in terms of a CR, that's pretty mild, right? If that's one of the only things.
Let me ask this. Do you think in the context of a potential government shutdown, that is the time to have policy debates?
Again,
no, it should be the 6 months before this, when we already voted on the spending bill. Chuck Schumer specifically said, I'm going to vote yes on this spending bill back in May and March, because he said, we're not going to be having this fight now. We have months to work this out. And by the time it comes around again, Trump's going to be immensely unpopular and we'll actually be able to have a discussion. He won't just be able to do whatever he wants. So it doesn't behoove us to fight back on this now.
And so you actually got exactly where I was going, because all the Democratic leadership, you can pull quote after quote after quote, have all agreed with my position and the position that we're taking tonight, that a government shutdown context is not the time. You do not take the American people hostage. And they use the exact word. I can pull the clip and show y'all. Chuck Schumer saying these exact words: we do not take the American people hostage over a policy fight. So it just sounds like, I mean, you guys can disagree with that if you like, But just be honest
think,
about it.
But do you think you're fairly representing Chuck Schumer, the man who is intentionally having a government shutdown right now, if you're saying that he agrees with you on that position?
Because the base of support.
We all agree on this. Chuck Schumer is intentionally having a government shutdown right now. We all agree on that?
He did just say that.
So what is the policy that he's presenting?
He just said it, so I was making sure we all caught that and we agree. Okay, great.
Right, but your prescription would be, or your assessment of that would be, he's causing the government shutdown insofar as he's holding the hostage by saying no, but on the other flip side, if the Republicans vote no on what a Democrat policy would be, that's not them holding it hostage because that's partisan, but they're voting no to have a government shutdown, to lead to a government shutdown because of the partisan policies that the Republicans want. And when you say, well, in the clean CR, they don't introduce these, all that is a stopgap to kick the can down the road. Obviously, they're not going to come.
How many of those stopgaps have we passed in a row?
Since what, October 1st? 0, right?
No, I think it's 13 consecutive CRs. It goes back to the Biden administration.
Correct.
Like we have had a very hard time passing long-term budgets in this country, and often CRs are presented in a dirty way. People attach all kinds of stuff to them. People attach all kinds of policy preferences to them. This is a clean CR. I guess the thing is, other than caving to your demands, I don't know what else the Republicans could have done. Like, they could have attacked all kinds of stuff to the CR. They didn't. Like, they gave a clean CR. If the Democrats don't want that and they want more, they want to attach their policy preferences to it, that's fine. That's a debate worth having. But I agree with you. It's an intentional shutdown on the part of the Democrats to advance their policy preferences. But and again, I don't see how we can avoid that conclusion.
But look because at the framing again. What Ultra, real quick, I know you've been trying to get. Let me just, because you used this hostage thing again. I need to address this. Like, if Hamas says, this is just the first terrorist organization that came in my head, but if they said, we will release all the hostages, but Israel has to unilaterally withdraw from Gaza and never go back in. That is hey, here are our demands, and you can give into these, but it's like, at this, you're framing this as, well, the Republicans presented these incredibly stringent rules to their budget bill that would cut 17 million people off of healthcare, that would triple healthcare costs, go up 75% or whatever. And if you don't agree to those, you're being the unreasonable one. And I think this framing is, I don't think it's disingenuous. I don't think you're being that way, but I think you're really biased in this framing in the sense of, that's why we're allowed to blame Democrats, because they're the ones saying no, when initially what the Republicans are passing is so outside the pale. And that's why I use the absurd example, because even though you don't agree that this is outside the pale, I think it really is to kick 17 million people off healthcare. And that's why I don't think it's fair to say that this is a terrorist situation.
GenZattorney made this point earlier, so I'm just cribbing notes off him. So, sorry about that, Gen Z. But, when the ACA Obamacare was passed, it was done over, I think, what do you say, Gen Z? There were no Republican votes?
0, correct.
Yeah, it was forced on the Republicans against their wishes. Now, the subsidies are starting to expire. Okay, right? But the thing is, this has been a hyper-partisan, contentious issue from the very beginning. So, yeah, there's a lot of debates about it. And yeah, when the Democrats had power, they forced the ACA through. When the Republicans had power, they got the big, beautiful bill through. Then there's a separate question about, are you going to fund the government?
The ACA, have you read, that was the 10-year war? The ACA was an incredibly difficult, and I know you don't want to say bipartisan because the Republicans didn't vote on it, but so much was compromised in the ACA to even get it close to being a bill that could be passed, because they had to negotiate with so many different constituents around the entire country, doctors and moderates and all this thing, just to get what we got, which was not even close to enough. It was one of the more compromising, reach across the aisle things that we've ever had, and the Republicans still shot it down because they're so dogmatic about it. That was a failure of a bill from Democratic perspective, and it just barely passed. And to call this this hyper-partisan ram-through thing, I think it's very
hyper-partisan
unfair.
Because how many Republicans voted for it?
Yeah, but I think that's more about the fact that
no. How many Republicans voted for it?
No. The ACA, it's calling the ACA hyper-partisan because no Republicans voting for it, I think is disingenuous to frame, because I don't want to call you a liar.
No.
If you look at the Republican...
Sorry, please. What on earth would be a better example of something that's hyper-partisan than something that's being passed over a total opposition of the other party?
Right.
That's the definition of hyper-partisan.
The reason it's not hyper-partisan from the Democrats is because the Democrats spent 5 to 10 years compromising on that bill to get it even close to something that people in the middle would
compromising with who?
The Republicans in the House under Obama made it an agenda from almost day one to block every single thing that Obama tried to do, so much much so, in fact, that Mitch McConnell voted against his own bill when Obama compromised and said, yeah, I'll vote for that. That's how hyper-partisan the Republicans were during the Obama administration. So I don't think you can call the ACA hyper-partisan, because the Republicans in those 8 years were so insane that they would try to block just anything.
Gen Z, I'm taking the time, so I want to
go ahead.
pass it to you, but just really quickly. The argument you're making is that a bill that is passed over every single person in the other party opposing it is not hyper-partisan.
Yes,
that is a position you can take, but if that's the standard for what is not hyper-partisan,
that's not the standard.
I don't know what we think
Ryan, that's not the standard.
Just
because to be clear, out of context, what you just said does sound silly, but again, you have to add the context of this is one of the most hyper-partisan opposition parties that we've ever seen in American history. And can you at least acknowledge that McConnell and these other people were doing everything they could to block Obama's legislation?
It would be crazy if they did something like shut down the government. That'd be wild.
They did shut down the government.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they own it. And they own it.
It's a partisan.
No, they actually don't. But
we're saying here the debate.
Can you please acknowledge that McConnell voted against his own bills that Obama agreed to?
No, McConnell was being partisan. I'm not claiming that Republicans weren't partisan in that period. I'm just saying so were the Democrats. That's what the ACA was, and it's a partisan. A shutdown is a partisan negotiation tool, which the Democrats are using. So when you ask who responsible for the shutdown, it's the Democrats, because they're using the partisan tool. It's not like a complicated argument.
Yeah, I have some.
Gen Z,
I have some. Hold on. I have one statement and a bunch of super chats that I do need to get to because I need to make a little money. The statement is, I think,
because I interrupted her twice, please.
Yeah, sure, and we'll give her in a second. I promise. Right. But I think the gap that needs to be bridged here isn't Soypill isn't saying that there was no partisanship during the Obama years and doing the ACA. He is claiming, and I think he's correct in this, that one side was being hyper-partisan and the other side was trying to negotiate to get some Republicans on board. I remember that time period very clearly. Obama was continuously trying to get some Republicans on board with the bill to say he had a bipartisan thing. And the Republicans at the time were just being hyper-partisan, saying no. So it's not both sides being partisan. One was being hyper-partisan and the other was trying to compromise. And that was what was happening.
And just to add to that, Wick, if you can find me Mitch McConnell or any of these people owning the shutdown and not saying it's the Democrats' fault when they shut down the government, I'd be very surprised. But maybe that is something like that. Because you said they owned it. I don't think they owned it.
I'm saying my opinion is they own it, as in I believe the Republicans were the ones that caused it. Because that is the entire premise of the debate panel tonight is who owns it.
Saying that when they shut it down. That's the point.
And what Democrats...
I think you are using that argument strategically right now to dodge the fact that Republicans never, ever own it when they shut down the government.
And what Democrats are owning it right now?
The point is not that the Democrats aren't owning it. The point is the Democrats are looking at the...
Okay.
No, exactly. No, this is exactly what I'm saying. The Republicans are being so unreasonable in this, where you look at Obamacare, when they shut that down, it's like, okay, here's 10 years of gutting and destroying single-payer healthcare to turn it into like a facsimile of what it ever was, just so it could even pass in the most moderate of places. And Republicans saying, hey, you know what? We're not going to vote for a single thing you do no matter what. And so looking at that and calling that hyper-partisan on the Democrat side, I think is pretty insane. And then looking at this and saying, oh, and also cutting 17 million people off of healthcare and shutting down rural hospitals so that people just die is as unreasonable. We should vote no on that. And that's taking hostage. I just think that's super disingenuous. I don't think we're not owning it. I think that's a very, very clear statement against, I don't want people to die. But again, we keep interrupting. Ultra, please go. I'm sorry.
So, and this is one of the main points, is that the way the Republicans are framing it in order to blame the Democrats is completely disingenuous in itself. Because what is Caroline Leavitt telling people? That the reason why the Democrats are, quote unquote, holding them hostage and shutting down the government, what exactly is she telling the American people? What exactly is the GOP telling the American people? Anyone?
Yeah, they're boiling it down. Their favorite point is they're saying healthcare for illegals, right? And I think that's a misstatement of the core we're getting into. And so, but I don't think either me or nor Ryan has said that tonight about the policy prescriptions here. So we can argue against.
You have not.
Right.
That's the thing. Yeah, you're the ones making an argument that's incongruent with the Republican argument. They're saying Democrats are doing this. First of all, they're lying. They're saying this is because they want to fund illegal healthcare, which is just not even in this at all. But they're saying this as the precedent for not like caving to the Democratic hostage situation that you're calling this, where they have to make something up to show that this is an incongruency. That's the position here, and you are taking a more reasonable position, I will say, but you aren't aligned with the Republican Party right now.
Well, and I'll speak for you as well, Ryan. Our goal is to build this reasonable right. We can disagree. By the way, good to see you again, Soypo. Last time we talked, it was a little more heated, but our goal here is to build more of a reasonable right that doesn't cave into, I guess, the silliness. So yeah, that's why me and Ryan will never hesitate to call out the silliness. Healthcare for illegals is a silly point, but I've also heard the points being made about everything else we're talking about, which is temporary COVID era subsidies that are expiring. That, yeah, guess what? Stuff that was temporary during COVID probably doesn't need to be turned into a permanent program, which, by the way, Democrats love to tell us that when they propose these types of budgets that, oh, it's okay, they've got sunset provisions in them, they'll end. And the Republican criticism is, that's a lie. They're going to be, once it's in law, it's going to be there forever. And now we're seeing it happen in real time, that we're literally shutting down the government over the ending of something temporary with the argument that it needs to be made permanent.
That's a fair
and I'll totally agree with you, by the way, just to tag on that, like, there's a lot of theatrics in politics. People signal, they're trying to make points that appeal to like the lowest common denominator. There's a lot of that stuff that happens. And I echo Gen Z in saying that that's not my politics, and it's not what I try to do with my platform. That said, you said that this would lead to what was it? I think I want to make sure I got it right. 17 million people dying in hospitals. What was?
Well, I don't think 17 million people.
Did you use the phrase "dying in hospitals"?
No.
I'd say the hospitals in rural areas are getting shut down. 17 million people are being kicked off of the Medicare. I don't know how many people are going to die, but people will die, absolutely.
Okay. So, but you're not claiming that hospitals would refuse care because
no. But people will not have access to hospitals in certain areas because they're shutting down, and the nearest one by them will be too far away for them to get treatment.
Unless the states create funding or some other thing happens. Like you're saying, you're assuming that if the federal government stops funding these things, that no other funding will
Hospitals are already shutting down now.
Yeah.
It's not, and they're not being replaced.
But you understand that, like, it just being like first principles, the conservative position is that healthcare should be handled at the state level, and we should figure it out. And that the problem is that we're applying all these terrible Band-Aid solutions.
But that's not what happens at the end of the day.
Well, no, it's just it's messy. I'm not going to disagree with you. There's going to be like a process, and that process is going to have some very bad outcomes and maybe some good outcomes too. But the point I'm making is that when people criticize the ACA on the Republican side, yeah, there's theater, yeah, there's partisanship, and I would agree with all about that. But the criticism of the ACA is not like an unprincipled criticism. It's that the right doesn't want the federal government to be in healthcare in the way that it is.
But this is my problem with what both of you just said, because I could look at both of your, I think, Gen Z, you made a fiscally conservative argument of, hey, I don't like that they put sundown provisions in here and say it'll go away, but then they just keep re-upping it. And Ryan, you say, look, the conservatives just don't want this to be handled by the federal government. Those are both completely reasonable. Having a disagreement on that, or like, there's ways you could do this, but that's not what is happening. What is happening is rural people are not going to get the funding. There is not going to be a replacement. And the way you framed it was, well, it's messy and there might be some bad outcomes. People in these rural areas will die. And the Republicans are not saying, well, here's the stopgap. So in the meantime, we can have the hospitals use this funding and we'll trickle them off. And then the states will have some policy, and we've worked with the states. That's not happening. They're just cutting it, and it's going into effect immediately. And Gen Z, when you say, well, yeah, it's silly that they're talking about the illegal immigrant thing. And Ryan, you say, oh, well, they're appealing to the lowest common denominator. Yeah, okay, it is silly, but you can't call it silly. That's not you being the reasonable right. That is you playing defense, because it's fucking insane that they are flat out lying to millions of people, just blatantly lying. And you're not being reasonable by saying, oh, I don't agree with that. That is wrong. And you need to call it out and say, these people shouldn't be our leaders. Anything short of that is just not enough.
Did you see what the Washington Post reluctantly admitted about the ACA recently?
I'm not sure what you're referencing now.
It's the thing that we've all known and that nobody was willing to say, that the ACA doesn't work. They fundamentally miscalculated the risk tables, and by extending the mandate and extending healthcare the way they did, the ACA's fundamental legacy is that it increased healthcare healthcare costs for the majority of people in America who get healthcare from their employer, and it has gone up, it's skyrocketed under the ACA. And the reason is that the ACA was built on this premise that if we expanded the pool, the risk tables would turn out a certain way and the math would math, and it just never did. It just never did.
I don't want to argue, but are you talking about shutdown fight over Obamacare highlights drawback of healthcare law? Is that the one you're talking about? The Washington Post? I just want to make sure I brought up the right one. That's from the Washington Post by Paige Cunningham.
We can't hear you, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. 15. Let me find it. The one I'm reading is a comment on the article. It's 15 years later. Wash Post editorial board says Obamacare was never actually affordable. And I'll get the.
How about
link
you just link it to him in the DMs, and then
if you can link me in the Discord
that way we were all on the same page. But
So can I make a rebuttal, or you need?
You can make a rebuttal. As soon as I read my super
I did interrupt,
chats.
so maybe you should finish.
I do want to make a little money today, and so I got to read my super chats, and we'll
go for it. Sorry.
No, Wick, you cannot read them. If you do, I'm leaving.
You can leave if you like. $5 from Alexander Wren to say, if the Republicans were serious at all, they wouldn't have cut out a week early to go on vacation. Republicans are terrified. $10 from Alexander Wren. At Ryan, why does Congress use CRs? Didn't Republicans fail in the first place for not passing an actual spending bill? $5 from Bad Company. If Republicans are refusing to negotiate, how can you blame the blame be on the Democrats? $10 from Alexander Wren. Will you stop pretending that Republicans aren't using the nuclear option because they are being principled? They are terrified of doing so and losing the Senate and House to Democrats after. $10 from Audacity. We can easily contrast this.
That one?
Wait, that is a principled position.
Well, I think Ryan's argument was if the Democrats believe that this is the fascist takeover, and I do believe that, but I think the difference is we're not in they have total control over everything and it doesn't matter at this point, elections are done. I think they understand that there's still a possibility of losing electorally, and like that comment said, they know if they use that nuclear option right now, it will not make them popular in 2026, and they won't be able to finish what they're doing right now. That's my argument for that, just to be clear.
Also, real quick, just definitionally, it is a principled position when you can take an action that will give you short-term gain but long-term pain, and because you recognize the long-term pain, you are choosing not to take the action. That's definitionally you have a principle there, which is that I believe in the filibuster as an institution, and I'm going to comport my conduct with that principle. That seems very basic.
But Gen Z, to be clear, when people say principle about the nuclear option, it's, hey, I believe in bipartisanship and negotiating, which the Republicans are not doing right now. That's what they mean by principled. Not you have a principled reason as to why you're not doing it. Obviously, they're not just random, throwing a dart at a board and deciding yes or no. They have a reason, but it's not because we believe in bipartisanship and building bridges and not overwhelming you just with 51. It's because they know it's unpopular and it'll hurt them.
But I this is the point of this argument I've never understood. I don't know why, for a president who can't be reelected, popularity would matter in this situation. If he was really the horrible fascist dictator that you guys say he is, he could do basically anything he wanted right now. He could do anything he wanted right now.
He is trying to.
Yeah,
you understand?
Yes, he's trying to. Yeah. So,
but he's not doing the most obvious thing that he could do to accomplish that goal.
You're ignoring what I said before this, Ryan, which is he doesn't have the power to do whatever he wants yet.
Because he's trying to. So he's trying to do something similar to what they were doing in Ukraine. Because I don't know, for some reason he just steals ideas from other people. He's basically trying to cause upheaval so that he can put in martial law so that there are no more elections, right? Because he already has a stupid 2028 hack. Why is he making jokes about the 2028 hacks? Right?
No,
the Democrats are playing right.
This is an insane point.
It's not an insane point.
The biggest check on his use of the National Guard is the Posse Comitatus Act and the National Guard Deployment Act, which limit his ability to use them. He could get rid of the filibuster and repeal those laws and replace them with a law that says, I get to deploy the National Guard wherever the fuck I want, and he could do it tomorrow, but he's not doing it.
No, that's the thing, right? He's doing his best to do these things, and this is why we're so upset and why I guess I had forgotten why I was so heated when I came into the last conversation, Gen Z. But when we say, hey, this one is going to have trickle down effects. Obviously, there are certain guardrails that might break at a certain point, but he cannot break right now. And there are congressional districts that he wants to win in the midterms that will help him do whatever he wants if he has more of a mandate by winning those. And the filibuster would not help him win those. That's one part of this argument. It's not just Trump, but two, the idea that he is definitely floating the idea of running 2028. And the only thing you guys can say as the reasonable right is he's just joking. The Democrats are falling for his trolling. He has made serious claims about wanting to run again. He has talked about going around the 22nd Amendment. And the fact that you're just completely not putting... No, I don't want to put money on it because if he does do it, I'm going to grab a gun and fight for my country. That's what's going to happen. We're not at the... I don't give a shit about money at that point. So that's a different thing. And I hope, Brian, if you're principled, that you would be on my team on that point when he does try to take over power. So no, this is insane, and you're playing defense for an insane madman. Yeah.
Exactly right. And this was admittedly, I think my highlight of the Destiny debate was calling him on this exact bet, saying, if you think Trump's going to run in 2028, let's bet on it. He tried to run away from it 2 separate times. Finally, he came back to it and said, okay, we'll do $20. That was my fault. I should have pushed him, said $20. Let's do 2,000, 10,000. Let's do it.
I bet you my multi-$100 M1 carbine rifle, Gen Z.
And so here's the thing.
I won't need it anymore because he's not running again. You can have it.
Yeah, if he does it, if he runs in 2028, I will take up arms with you and revolt against it. And you can, we'll be standing side by side. It'll be real easy to give me that gun. Okay.
Well, don't stand side by side.
I don't think he's going to run again.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Don't make a little easy target by standing right next to each other. That's bad tactics. Let me continue reading. Okay.
That fucking propeller hat. It's like when the British.
Yeah, I am. Did I tell you I'm wearing this? This is my camo.
I mean,
you guys are idiots. They're going to be looking for army guys.
True. $10 from Audacity. We can easily contrast this with, quote, force the vote, unquote, which was supposed to be Dems within the party holding the party hostage, versus this, which is holding the government hostage. $5 from Bad Company. Is Mike Johnson holding the new Arizona Congresswoman hostage by not confirming her since she's a tiebreaker vote on Epstein list? $20.
True.
From Alexander Wynn. In September 2013, the Democrats cut even more than the Republicans asked for, and the Republicans still refused to fund the government. Talk about bad faith here. If you ask for 40% and I give you 60% and you still say no? $10 from Pondering Politics. Gen Z lawyers Schumer's inconsistency. What did Republicans do, say, or try during shutdown negotiations with Democratic presidents? Did they or did they not try to use shutdowns for leverage? $5. I'm almost done. $5 from Bad Company. Funny how the negotiator-in-chief can't negotiate a deal and has to shut down the government every time he's in office. And finally, $50 from Pondering Politics. Ryan. Senate Republicans are currently refusing him on the filibuster, just like McConnell did in his first term. Trump doesn't get credit for that. And the Republicans have already modified the filibuster in this term on other issues. Yes, to piggyback off that super chat, Trump did try to end the filibuster in 2017 of his first term. He tried. He failed. And Trump is trying to do it again right now. Should you not be very, very upset?
If that's a real concern for you, you should be really, really grateful and supportive to the reasonable right, people like me and Gen Z who support the filibuster, who support politicians who support the filibuster. Like, I don't want the filibuster abolished, and I think there's a lot of people in the Republican Party who don't want it abolished. And by the way, I'm a Thomas Massie guy. I'm with you. Release the Epstein list. Like, I think there's actually quite a lot of things that, like, the reasonable right and the left could agree on. It's not going to happen in the context of a government shutdown. This is everyone go to your corner and brawl time. But, I actually think there's a lot of stuff we could find common ground on. I'm happy to have those conversations.
Okay, that's
nice.
nice.
I'm just doing a quick Google search. Republican support for abolishing the filibuster. It looks like it's between 10 and 15% of the Republican voters. So I would not say
we're
this
not
is
talking about
popular...
voters. We're talking about
Well, no, we are, and that's the reason they don't want to do this, because it will hurt them if they do this. It's not popular with Republicans in midterms. That's the point. It's not because they don't want to do it and they don't want to ram this through. It's because they know it's not what their constituents want.
Yeah, it's Schrodinger's fascist, right? It's kind of like when Kamala Harris was saying, if we don't win this election, it's all over, democracy's over. And then when the election was over and her staffers were like, holy shit, the country's done, we're doomed. She says, don't worry, we'll get them next time.
Ryan, do you think that Hitler lied about certain things to get in power that he otherwise would have, if he had the power to do, didn't do, but did other things to appease voters?
Politicians lied. Now, that's crazy. Hitler lied.
Fascists.
Hitler also had a dog.
Fascists, yeah. These are not one-to-one. Having a dog and lying and or doing things that are popular with the constituency to amass more power, so that by the time you can do anything you want, it's too late, is a fascist thing to do.
Obama told me
flip a switch and become
fascist. He was going to appoint judges who would rule on empathy, and what he meant was he would appoint judges who would rewrite the Constitution. Politicians say all kinds of shit, man.
We rewrite the Constitution all the time. It's called an amendment.
Well, but they weren't doing it.
When was the last amendment passed?
They were doing it
way too long ago.
2003.
Yeah. So the issue, if you're going to say that like politicians lying is fascism, I mean, you can make.
I'm not saying that politicians are lying. You're saying fascists would never not do. Meaning. No. But what you're saying is fascists would never do something that would, like, they would never not force something through because they're incapable of looking into the future and saying, if I do this now, I'll lose more of the power. If I don't do this now, even though it would be more fascist to be unilateral about it, I will be able to amass more power by winning in the midterms and then be able to do whatever I want.
No, what I'm saying is when I debate someone like Destiny, when I talk about like the fucking insane rhetoric that's being used, people will say things, and I know this because Destiny said it.
Just housekeeping, and I'll let you finish real quick.
Oh my, I was on a roll, buddy. Come on.
I know I have to use the restroom. Be good. No slurs.
You're killing me.
This is moderator bias. I agree. Look at this.
What's the housekeeping?
And then he just leaves? What
happened?
I think the debate was so spicy we kicked Wick off his own panel. All right, I'm gonna
until he comes back. Finish your point. Yeah,
I'll read Wick super chats. $5. Ryan is a handsome and beautiful man, and he's made these unbelievably salient points. I can't believe that anyone would argue against him. $10. That last comment, dead on. No notes except Gen Z is also a handsome and beautiful man. YouTube, you're doing fine, but all you can do. All right, that's the end of the super chats. So
don't forget about the misogynistic comments. Don't forget about those. $900 to tell the woman to turn off her camera.
No. Sorry, I just saw someone saying in the chat. Chapingro said, "At Gen Z, how many Dem voters want it?" Once again, quick Google search. Looks like a Washington Examiner March 2021 post that 65% of Democrats said they favor eliminating the filibuster. So we're not exactly close on this issue here.
Can someone tell me, is Wick still live? Like, is this still a panel? Are we just existing in the nether?
We're streaming, so we're definitely live on my end, so don't say anything weird. But
I'm streaming too.
Wick is still live.
Okay.
Here,
he's still live.
Hold on. I'll read the super chats, guys. There's two from Pondering Politics. Well, yeah, we already read this one. $5.
No. I read Pondering Politics already. That's what he was saying. He's the one who was calling me a beautiful man. You can skip those. Don't worry about it, Sway.
There's one last one here. So Pondering Politics asks for 50. But bet me he won't try to coup. He's saying this to Gen Z is silly. He tried to stay in power unlawfully before. Ask Ryan/Gen Z what their position was at the time on Trump and the peaceful transfer of power in 2020. Did they claim he would accept it and there would be no issue?
Yeah, struggle session, Ryan. Let's get it.
Round
J6,
two.
baby.
It's weird he's asking this because he knows my. I think Gen Z have a difference of opinion here, but I, despite having a preference for Trump over Harris, did not vote for Trump specifically because of the false slate of electors. So this is not an area where I'm shy of my criticism of him. But I think Gen Z, you probably have an answer that's going to be more.
I mean, I can give a super brief answer. I really don't want to get sucked down the J6 rabbit hole. If you want to get my full thoughts, I guess they weren't as well articulated as maybe I hoped. Go watch the Destiny debate. Super basic when it gets to because where me and Ryan disagree on the false slate of electors. My main takeaway is, was it bad? Yes. Was it a bad attempt at something bad? Yes. Do I think the Supreme Court was going to stand for it? Absolutely not. And I think Eastman even said that overtly in his memo. Said it was going to get struck down 9-0. Pushing novel legal theories are not a new thing. We can disagree with the gravity of the outcome of a novel legal theory, but just in and of itself, pushing a novel legal theory, no matter how wacky it is, there's plenty that get pushed all the time. but I
All
just
right,
see
so
it. I just
Lindsay,
see
if
it
you want
having.
me to be seeing you as the reasonable, right? You can't say, yeah, it was bad, but the guardrails held, so I'll let them try to coup the government again. I think that's insane.
But to directly address Josiah's point, though, saying, bet me he won't try a coup and
Oh,
then bring it back to
if we're gonna
Jacob.
read super chats, let me read the fucking super chat. $50.
Oh, you missed it. We
I
already
already
did.
read the
You were
super
gone,
chat.
and I made
I
you money.
read the
Wick.
super
Okay,
chat
y'all read
today.
it? It's
There's
read?
a lot of guys who think I'm very good looking. It's a weird internet
Okay.
thing. I don't know why it's happening. It's embarrassing. Josiah, stop hitting on me. It's weird. But Wick, you don't need to read them. It's fine.
Yeah, we did read them out loud, though, just to be serious. But to directly address the point that Josiah's making there, it's the point I'm making is not, will he try and coup again? My point is he even going to run again? And that's the bet I'm trying to make with people. And only Destiny's taking me up on it for 20 buckaroos. And I'm waiting to see who else is willing to bet me any amount of money.
I don't think he's going to run again. I don't think he's going to run again. I think his plan is to not have any future elections. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, so you remember that thing when during his campaign when he like adamantly said that he wasn't aware of Project 2025, like he had no idea what it was. He didn't know, like he had nothing to do with it. And then now all of a sudden he knows exactly what it is, and he's like using it as a playbook.
So if you're referring to the recent tweet he made about, what is it, Russ Vought of Project 2025 fame,
Yeah.
I don't know. I read that as y'all keep saying this guy's Project 2025. I'm going to make a riff on, oh look, he's Project 2025 famous. I think it's a stretch there. But to address your point directly, though,
He wrote it.
you
What do you
say,
mean it's a stretch?
You say, but my point.
Wait, no, address that. What do you mean it's a stretch? He wrote it.
Did Russ Vought?
He's like one of the primary authors on Project 2025. What do you mean it's a stretch?
I'll have to plead ignorance on it as far as the contents of Project 2025, because similar to Trump, I did not read it either, because I felt like it was boy who cried.
He definitely did read it. He definitely did read it because you realize
you think Trump sat and read an 800-page document?
No, he can't read. But he definitely has like the talking points from it, because you realize that there are a lot of people. I won't say a lot of people, but I know specifically Caroline Leavitt was actually brought on from the Heritage Foundation, right? So she was running rhetoric from the Heritage Foundation, and she was actually hired directly from there to be his press secretary. So like it's not like he hasn't associated himself already with Project 2025.
But as someone who's worked a little bit in DC, I'll caveat that. But it's literally, if you're not there working in the government, you're probably there working in a think tank writing policy for the government. And when your ideological match is in the government, there's a lot of back and forth between the government and these think tanks, and it happens in both parties. So I really don't understand we say the phrase the Heritage Foundation, like it's like, I remember when I watched the documentary about the 13th Amendment, about how it's super bad, and they referenced ALEC, what is American Legislative something committee. And it's
okay,
like,
wait. Okay,
I'd like, well, real quick. It's like,
stop.
I'd like to think, I'm someone in the know.
Donald Trump says, I have a meeting with Russ Vought, he of Project 2025 fame, and you called this a stretch, and you're pleading ignorance, and now you're like doing all this fucking defense. This is why I got unhinged, because you're trying to call yourself reasonable, and you're either so stupid that you don't understand the guy that you're supporting is saying this to your fucking face, or you are purposefully misleading people. And this is just directly true. And I have to go back to Josiah's comment, by the way, because we can move off that because you're so clearly wrong. He asked, what did you guys say that Trump would do in 2020? Did you say that he would accept the 2020 election results? Because if you didn't, then you making bets about what he's going to do in 2028 is irrelevant, because clearly he didn't. But if back then you guys were both saying, well, I think he's going to, go with it, and he still to this day has not conceded, then why should we take our opinion at all at this seriously?
So what I remember back in 2020 was when Trump was president, all the Democrats laying the groundwork that he was going to steal the election. Remember, it was the postmaster general, right? He was going to hack into the mailboxes and steal all the votes and reinstall himself. So the groundwork was being laid for that Trump was going to steal the election. And then, do I like that Trump flipped it around and say, actually, it was the Democrats who stole the election? No, but don't pretend that this is just a vacuum of an issue. And also to 2020.
What did you predict he would do?
What did I predict he would do?
Did you say Trump will accept the results of the election?
I can't think that I ever made a prediction on what he was going to do in response. No,
I feel a little bit. I feel like it's almost unfair for me to do this.
To be fair, I can't trust everything you say, GenZ, because you just completely misconstrued a point that Trump said today. But go ahead, Ryan. What did you say he would do in 2020?
It's a little bit unfair because I wasn't doing public internet stuff, so there's no way for anyone to like fact check
I'll
me.
take your word on
Okay.
it for now.
My view at the time was that he was going to kick and scream until the very last minute, and I thought there was like a 10% chance he might have to be like escorted out of the building, but not higher than that. Like I thought he was going to kick up a cloud of dust until the very last second and then leave, which is more or less what happened.
Did you think he would concede that the election was not won by him?
Publicly? No, I didn't think he would.
He still didn't. I mean, he still has that fake slate of electors case against him in Georgia. Like that's still ongoing.
He came close to. The closest I've seen to him admitting that was on the Joe Rogan interview. I think it was Joe. Might have been
Lex
Friedman.
Friedman
a long time ago.
is where he did it.
Yeah, there's a couple times where he came pretty close to admitting it. I don't think he actually has like full-throatedly admitted it, but I didn't expect. I got the quote. It's kind of off brand.
So if I take your word on this, and that is how you predicted, let's just say you're correct on that. If you predicted that he would not concede the election, why are you so sure he wouldn't try to run again in 2028?
Because we're willing to put money on it.
I think I'm right, and that's why I'm willing to bet on it. Yeah, but if you're going to ask why do I think I'm right, and you bet a hunting rifle with Gen Z. I don't think we have a side bet yet, so let me know if you want one. But my theory of mind of Trump, to the extent I have one, and he's a hard guy to predict, is he reminds me a lot of like an aggressive client. Right, like when you talk, like when as a lawyer, I have these conversations sometimes with people where they're like, powerful people, and they want to do something, and I'm like, you can't really do that, and they're like, well,
do you defend a lot of rapists as a lawyer?
What can you? I mean, no, because I'm not a defense attorney, and if I did, that would be fine because people deserve a defense.
The language you're using, aggressive clients. I'm like, wow, that's putting it softly, I guess.
Lean into it, Soy. Yeah. Do you think that people who are accused of rape shouldn't get a lawyer? That's not a good thing to do.
But I would never say, hey, yes, last week I defended a kind of an aggressive client. It's like, oh, what did you do? Oh, well, he's accused of raping.
No, what I'm saying,
that's a very soft way of putting it.
What I'm saying is, you have no fucking theory of mind for the guy, and I'm trying to give you one. And the theory of mind there is that it is not uncommon in my line of work for a powerful figure to say, I want to do X. The lawyers say, we can't really do it this way. What do you want to do? And they're like, well, can you come up with an option? Can we litigate? Can we come? What are our options?
You do know the option that they are proposing, right? That they have an option for this.
Yeah.
You know it?
So, Wick, if you can let me finish the point, and because I've been interrupted by a rape accusation, and now you, so if you let me finish the fucking point. So the reason I don't think that he's gonna run again in 28 is that's not an aggressive position he's trying to take. What he wants to do is he wants to push the envelope in a lot of ways, but it's very clear he can't run again in 28. I don't think he has any interest in running again in 28. I think he's said as much, and I think I believe that.
Even I will say this, Ryan. There is a legal theory that is actually potentially completely sound that if he runs as a vice president and then the president steps down, he can do it without actually violating the 22nd Amendment.
Yeah, I think that's possible.
Which I think would be insane if we let him do that. But technically, that might not even be illegal.
That is probably legal. I don't think he would do that. By the way, I don't think.
And he would not get elected either.
Again, because my original question was, you accurately predicted that Trump would not concede the election. Why do you think that the idea that this guy would try to violate the ECA, to try to overturn the Democratic election in 2020, would not try might even be a more legal theory in 2028 to go for a third term? Why would he not do that? Why would he
would never run as the second person on the ticket.
And even if he did, he wouldn't win.
As soon as he got in power, he gets to be number one. His ego couldn't possibly handle being vice president for a campaign.
No. B, it would be a death sentence to the campaign. C, the problem with it is that even if you think he's so nefarious that he would do this, and I actually don't agree with that at all, he's then in the position where all the person who's elected president has to do to keep the job is not resign. And there's no way that he's going to put that amount. I don't think he puts that amount of faith in anybody. So I think his ego wouldn't let him do it. I think it tarnishes his legacy in a way he wouldn't want. I think it's impractical, and it requires trust that he doesn't have. I think it is spectacularly unlikely. But if you'd like to bet on that, I'm happy to put my money where my mouth is too, because we can talk about all this shit. But the reality is, I think these are incredibly unlikely occurrences. And if you want to put money on it, we can do that, because I'm confident enough in it that I would lay down some cash.
Okay.
And I want to. Sorry, go ahead, Wick.
Yeah, just real quick. I know we're at the 2-hour mark, sort of, so I got in here, and I want to just do kind of like a temperature check. You guys doing okay? Do we want to keep going? Do we want to start wrapping it up? It's up to you. I'm okay either way. If you guys have other things to do, we can...
I'm good.
Yeah, regretfully, I would like to start wrapping it up. I don't have a hard stop, but I'd like to start moving in that direction.
Okay, we can start moving. I just wanted to make sure
I was on for an hour before we started this with Wick,
I just wanted to make sure I'm respectful from everyone's time. That's also, we will kind of get that. So, to get us back on track in that case, right? I mean, regardless of who's to blame or who's responsible, is the government shutdown going to help or hurt Republicans and Trump just in the midterms going forward? Or is it going to have no effect? Is this just going to be something people forget about? Doesn't really move the needle? What are our thoughts here, gang?
I mean, if you look at the polling right now, it's hurting them right now. But it's hard to say what will happen in a year. I mean, Charlie Kirk, I was like so sold on the first week that like this was going to be an insane thing. In the same way the Trump assassination attempt, I was like, wow, it's over. Now no one is talking about it because a lot of people don't care anymore. But this is a much more major thing. People are going to feel the effects of it. It's hard to say. It depends on what actually happened. This could bite the Democrats in the ass, where the Republicans might eventually say, you know what, we won't cut all this healthcare, and then all the people in the rural hospitals that would have been fucked if not for the Democrats will then vote for Trump again. I don't know. It's hard to say.
I think the attention span is too short for this to matter in any sort of election in the midterms or 2028. I don't think this is having an effect on that. I will note, though, when I was on Wick's panel the night of Charlie Kirk's death, I specifically called, actually, and the Destiny debate too, specifically called it and said the fallout from the Charlie Kirk death was not going to be this crazy thing that our friends on the left seem to... I know you point to all the quotes, all the commentary, people saying, this means war, and I said, it's a bunch of LARP and cosplay, it's not going to mean anything. And well, it sounds like you and me agree.
First thing we've agreed on.
Well, I disagree with you both. This has been used as an issue by Stephen Miller and the Trump administration to push through different sorts of things that are going to have lasting effects.
They used the big balls attack to push through crazy stuff. They didn't need that, and it won't ever be the thing that people remember as the reason they did all this.
That's not what I'm saying. They need to remember it's the reason they did all this, but it is like never let a catastrophe go to waste kind of thing.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is Charlie Kirk's face will be a tiny one in the history books.
Fair. But I'm just saying this is going to have it will have lasting effects. I still stand by that. But go ahead.
I actually agree. I agree with you, Wick.
I want Ultra to have a chance to go, and then you can go. Ultra was trying to get.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think that if they start flattening out Democratic programs, if they start, or what they call Democratic programs, I'm not exactly sure what those are, but I'm sure he'll elaborate on those. But if they do that, if they start firing people because the Democrats want a ACA bill extended, that kind of seems like that will affect them in a way. I mean, we could go two ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to predict how this ends, and of course we're all just reading tea leaves, right? So who knows? But my guess is that it plays out something like this: the Democrats shut down the government. We're in that moment right now. Trump looks for leverage. The leverage he's going to find is firing people, and he's going to start firing a whole lot of people. That's going to make the Democrats very upset, but will ultimately lead to an end to the shutdown. And then there'll be a blame game about who was the bad guy in that scenario, and the government will continue to the next CR fight. That's how I think this is going to go. We'll see. I think that when he starts firing people, the conversation will meaningfully shift. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think the shutdown ends not that far after that happens. But we'll see.
I'm actually, I love you, Ryan. I'm going to disagree as far as how I think this turns out. Oh, yeah, you're right. It's tea leaves right now. Unfortunately, I think based on the polling, it seems like the pressure kind of is on the Republicans. They're getting the blame, which I think is completely wrong. But I think so long as there is that pressure there, unfortunately, the longer that exists, and yeah, Trump can start firing people. But if Trump's getting blamed for the shutdown, and then he starts firing people for something he's getting blamed for, I think it's going to be like a double dose of blame. And it sounds like Republicans are going to have to cave on at least some of the things to reopen. Which, congratulations, the hostage deal worked out.
Well, he has an underlying agenda to all of this, which I don't think we want to get into right now if we're trying to wrap up. So
I do want to ask you a question though, Ultra, because we kind of and I will say too, I did say let's not spin off into the J6 rabbit hole or kind of everything tangential to that. We spent about 20-30 minutes down that, but you did say something, Ultra, during that I wanted to come back to. You said you don't think there will be any election at all in 2028 because Trump will have so thoroughly cemented his grip on America. Is that something you really believe?
no, so when I said that, I mean like kind of ironically, because I'm saying like he'll try to establish martial law, he'll try to cancel elections, he'll do something where Ukraine was doing where they can't have election because there's an active war, there's martial law, right? So and the reason why I'm saying that is because he did something really kind of significant in which when the foreign leaders came to the White House, he put out those hats, those Trump 2028 hats. I think it was specifically when Zelensky was there, right? It was like Zelensky. Let me see.
While you're looking
that up, just to add to that, I don't believe that Donald Trump will be like, no new elections, it's not happening, because at that point he won't have enough power to do that. But what he will do is try to do everything he can to subvert the election so that he wins, in the same way that he tried to cheat in 2020. So if you want to make a bet, will Donald Trump, if one, he loses to a Democrat in 2028, do some things?
How could he lose
January
in 2028?
If he runs again. Oh, I guess we would have to make the bet.
I'm willing to bet he won't run. How could he possibly fucking lose?
Run as anything. President, vice president.
On its face of whether or not he runs is because, one, he might die. Obviously, I feel like you'd agree that would see the bet. But two, he might also, I don't know why you'd think this is impossible, that he wouldn't even run as the vice president. But I also could see, if you had health problems, would let a surrogate run for him and just do everything through him.
So you came with this hypo like, oh man, I'm going to get him with this one. I was willing to bet that he wouldn't even run in the first place. So any scenario that you just described, I would have already lost the bet. I'm willing to stake my claim way earlier. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Because Ryan, because the point is, when I asked you, well, actually Josiah asked, and when I tried to clarify, what did you think would happen when if Donald Trump lost the 2020 election? And your prediction was he will kick and scream. Your prediction was not he will try to violate the Electoral Count Act. He'll try to use false electors. He might accidentally or purposely incite a riot at January 6th. I'm sure none of those three things fell under your purview. You're like, he's going to make a big fuss about it and he won't say he lost. But like, the point is, you're trying to make predictions about whether or not he'll run, and you're operating under the fact that, like, well, none of those things would have happened. But now, with all of the information we have, it's like, well, okay, he did that, but it's not that bad. And it's like, hold on.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that at all. I said these are factually dissimilar situations. I think in 2020, I disagree with what he did, but there was a path forward for him to be president again, and he was trying to pursue it. I don't think he should have, but that's what he was doing. In 2028, there's no real path forward other than this like VP scenario that we're talking about, or there's a couple other weird shenanigans. But like,
the reason you said
I don't think there's any realistic path forward. I gave you 4 reasons why he wouldn't do it. We added he might be dead or too old, which is I think a good 5th reason. But I think
the other 3 already too old.
Sorry, what?
No, I was asking, what were the other 3 besides the ego thing? Because I think that's kind of a weak reason to say that wouldn't happen.
Okay, ego. He'd probably lose.
Yeah, I say I go stronger. I say he definitely lose 100%.
Yeah, it's a losing move. I don't think that there's anyone on God's green earth he trusts enough to have that job and resign it to him when he cannot force them to do so. So I just don't. I think the president
he can't force him to resign, but there are ways. Okay, anyway, I don't want to get into that.
Do you think his ego to be in power would overweigh?
Don't say it, Ryan. No Fed posting.
Hold on. You think he would stop short of that if he's willing to do all the other steps up to that? But he'd like, well, that's just a step too far. He wouldn't do
Yeah,
that.
I think I don't. Yes, Wick. I don't think he's going to take the life of his running mate to get the job. I don't.
Well, it wouldn't
My
be running
read
mate
on
in
him
that-
is not so
that
bad
portion,
as
yeah.
yours is.
Okay.
Certainly,
Or he'll
probably
just
okay.
shit again, right?
Regardless, my bet stands insofar as this. If he does run in 2028, I will personally buy both of you high quality, well lubricated rifles to fight back against the fascistic government.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's
Yeah. I'm sure both
delighted.
of you
Good.
probably own them, but I will get you the high. Look, my dad goes quality. All right, he has like the the nice, good action Benelli M4. I'll get you guys some nice high quality stuff. Okay?
No, I actually am not a gun guy. I'm a Second Amendment guy, but not a gun
Just
guy.
real
But
quick.
now that I'm officially on the right, and I have two
Right.
young daughters who are going to grow up, I probably should become a gun guy, right? Like that.
Right.
I think that's the move.
So
And
like,
I'll break.
Can you see my gun back here?
Well,
Hold
I
on.
won't say this.
There we go.
I don't want to
See
fed
it.
post actually.
So just real quick, Soy, you want to go to Louisiana and learn to shoot guns? So these two guys offered me like a spot there.
To learn, do you
Well,
think I don't know how to shoot guns, Wick?
No, I know how to shoot guns, but they want
You-
like
you
train
see
me.
those
Like,
guns
he
they're the
has
guys
right
who
there.
train Destiny apparently, and they were like, "You
Wick
wanna
was in
go-"
the military, right? Like
Yeah,
Wick
no,
knows how
I
to
know
shoot a
how,
gun.
but look, it's a free trip to Louisiana. Do you want to?
I'll take a free trip to Louisiana to
I
shoot
don't know.
guns. for
We'll
sure,
figure it
yeah.
out. But I just thought, oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah,
But anyway,
let's do it. I'm down.
Anyway. In the service of wrapping up, I'm going to read these super chats. We're going to have closing statements. I'm going to let all these lovely gentlemen and lady go. I appreciate this has been kind of chaos. Okay, we had someone who could only be here for an hour. It was a lot. But I appreciate you all for sticking it out and staying with me. We got some great stuff coming up tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We're going to have Drew Pavlo and Erudite on. We had to reschedule that due to illness from last week, so that's when we're going to do it. On Wednesday, we're going to have Lactoid and Defense Lawyer, actually, debating Not So Erudite and Soy Pill on who has the better solutions to crime, the right or the left. So you get double dose of soy pill this week, gang. We're trying to set up something Friday with Loner Box, but we'll see if we can, on Reform UK and the British migration issues. But that is up in the air, and we will see what we can do. So if any of you have really big thoughts on Reform UK and want to debate Loner Box on Friday, let me know. With that said, super chats, and then we'll end. Alexander Rin, at Gen Z, what do you consider him running again? If he runs as VP or tries to get appointed, does that count? Or if he doesn't make it to the election, does that count as a draw? I'd be willing to put up a few hundred. So
if he can't make it, and let me see who this is exactly, so we can
Rin.
Lock this in. Okay, Alexander Rin. Okay. If he doesn't make it for health reasons, then it voids the bet. This is a legal principle. Death is basis for voiding a contract. Assuming he is not dead, I will grant you any of those options. If he runs again as president, if he tries to run as the vice president, if he just tries to abolish the election and install himself as Supreme God Emperor Trump, any step that Trump takes in 2028 to continue being the leader of the free world, if he does anything to do that, then I'll bet you $500 on it.
Wait, anything?
Anything to where January 20th, 2029, Trump is the leader of the free world.
Oh, so just like January 6th, if he doesn't succeed, that guy loses the bet?
No, I'm talking. Wait,
if he tries. No, you're saying that if he attempts
tries,
it, he doesn't have to succeed at it.
What if he massively restricts voter turnout through some sort of like martial law type thing?
To get
That's what I said.
To get himself reelected?
Mm-hmm.
That would require him being on the ticket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're already getting past the
point.
No,
actually, no. To be fair, it wouldn't.
If he's on the ticket,
because he would already be president.
Lost the bet.
He would already be president at that point.
Exactly. We will know like mid 2027, right? Whether or not Trump's running again, because he's going to announce it, right?
Yeah. Okay. You guys can work out the details of that bet.
So Alexander Rin, $500. I'll put it down for you.
Okay. $5 from Bad Company. Trump's phone call to Raffensperger is admission. Ryan thinks criminals just come out and say when they did a crime. $5 from Bad Company to say MAGA dude just unalived a bunch of Mormons and burned down the church, and a MAGA kid unalived 2 girls that made fun of Kirk. But okay, Gen Z. And then finally, $5 from Gelatinous Rube to say Shutdown caused widespread awareness of the Community Relations Service. They'll be doxxed and the program destroyed. Say goodbye to your secret police. Thank you for the $5. And with that,
real quick response to Bad Company,
Go
just
ahead.
on that one comment there. Look at my Twitter. I dived super deep into this MAGA kid that unalived these 2 girls. Completely not what you're making it out to be. You can look at my Twitter. I got really sucked into it yesterday. I was actually late to tune into Ryan's stream because I got so sucked in. So you can look at all the evidence there. That's just what you just said is completely, totally a lie. And you're dancing on the graves of 2 innocent girls to make that point. So cool.
okay. Closing. So we're going to start with Ryan. We'll let Ultra have the last word. So we'll just go around. Go ahead, Ryan. Close this out, please.
So this was a bit of a wild conversation with a lot of twists and turns, but I think we started from the fundamentally correct premise, which was you look at who's holding the hostage, and that's probably who's to blame. And we talked about a lot of stuff, but none of it changed it. Everybody who's been arguing the other side has been unanimous in agreeing with the core premise. The Democrats are intentionally shutting down the government to get leverage to negotiate their policy preferences. Now, they might have good reasons for doing that. They might have bad reasons for doing that. But the premise of the debate was who is responsible for the shutdown? And the answer is obvious. It wasn't more complicated than that. And that's why we spent most of the time talking about other things, because we resolved it so early on. About those other things, I honestly struggle sometimes to put myself in the mind of my friends on the left, because it's not that I'm not critical of Trump. I am, and I've been very critical of him. But he's somehow both this evil man who Wick implied would, take the life of his running mate in order to secure his God emperorhood, and also a man who, for whatever reason maybe you think the Republicans aren't backing, whatever, but is not railing through the filibuster right now when it could lead to him having all kinds of power. It just strikes me as odd that the Republicans who are, and I've talked to many people, including Destiny, who say that the whole MAGA, all the right, they're all corrupt, they're all the same, yet here they are, upholding the guardrail of the filibuster. Here they are, not imposing their regime on us all. It's an odd one. So yeah, I guess if the way you approach this is that you just assume the worst of him all the time in every context, then you're going to end up in that situation. But I don't know how to convince you otherwise. It seems contrary to the facts. We've been willing to put up money on it. If people want to bet, we can bet. In any event, I'm Ryan Mullally. I have a nascent YouTube channel called Natural Law with Ryan Mullally. I'm having a lot of fun. It's actually growing. Wick, I appreciate you hosting me for many hours today. While we talked about a lot of things, my throat is sore as shit, but I appreciate all of you. Ultra, nice to meet you. Soy, good seeing you again. Gen Z, thanks for fighting the good fight, and I can't wait to see what's on your note.
Okay, so just to address that, in the condition that he has already run as a vice presidential candidate, he's already violated that norm. He's won, and in the condition of that, then yes, I do think Trump would take that step. Outside of those conditions, I don't think he would. But yeah.
Wait, Wick. Donald Trump refused to call off the January 6 protesters who he saw committing violence and chanting "Hang Mike Pence" with a guillotine. So he already kind of tried to get his vice president killed, or at least was going to let it happen. So you backed off of that way too fucking quickly.
No, I didn't back off. I just said under these certain conditions.
Absolutely would fucking kill his fucking running mate.
If he thought he could get away with it, yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, and it would have the thing. I don't. Why would I put that past Trump? And also I want to shout out to the Democrats for holding the bar and not nuking the filibuster when they had control of the Senate and they had the control of these things. So Democrats, principled, they take a stand. They stood against the people who were trying to get rid of the filibuster. So Democrats, shout out to you. I salute you. Biden could have done it, but he didn't because he's a principled man. Under Ryan's logic.
You debating or you moderating?
I'm just commenting on the closing statement.
You're just commenting.
He's saluting, damn it.
I'm saluting. Okay, go ahead, Gen Z.
Yeah, I won't say too much in closing. I think Ryan pretty much hit the nail on the head with everything he said. The quick plugs, you can find me on YouTube, GenZattorney, kind of splitting between covering kind of celebrity slop cases, since people seem to find those interesting, and also, our typical politics and government, Supreme Court type stuff. Also on Twitter, at the GenZattorney. So those are where you can find me. Stay tuned for some stuff me and Ryan got cooking up. I already teased it to Ryan. I haven't even told him what I'm thinking yet. But I'm here to tease him once again. Do you feel the tingles, Ryan? Yeah.
What's on your note?
Yeah, okay.
Content's coming.
So it plugs. Right, okay. To bring it back to the very beginning, I want to see if we can agree. Is the position here that the Democrats are doing what they're doing essentially as a necessary evil, that they need to stand up to Trump, and this is the manner they've chosen to do it in? Is that a fair statement?
It's not evil. Why would it be
asking us?
Yeah. For
I don't
my
consider this evil just because it's necessary, but I'll address it in my closing.
Okay. Ultra, do you agree that this is something Democrats feel like they need to do to stand up to Trump and Republican agenda?
No, they don't need to do that. They don't need to do this. They don't. Really
are they
need to
doing
do
it? I guess. Are they doing it? Is I guess a better question.
Are they doing it? I mean, are they not voting on the bill? Yes.
Okay.
Like, are they not voting?
It's time.
Yes, but like,
you can see it.
Just let him do his thing.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Take your note.
Okay. I want to know what's on the note.
So Soyfield doesn't know, but he told us at the beginning he knew what was going to happen during this debate, so he wrote a note and he stuck it over there, and he's going to tell us.
I feel like a magician now. Do you agree? This is the same note that was over on the wall.
I don't know. You put it under the camera. You could have had another note there.
The notes. Wait, no.
I'm sorry. Here, whatever.
I'm
not even
It's gone now. You
all right.
You messed it up.
Sleight of hand.
My prediction at the beginning of this debate. Sorry, let me hold up so you can see.
He killed his assistant magician and took the note off her body.
No, he could have had it under the table. He could have had the different ones, depending. Like, we don't know. I'm just saying.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't want to show my crotch, but I promise there's no other notes there. All right, I said this debate was going to start. My friends on the left were going to start by saying Trump caused shutdown, therefore shutdown bad. By the time we got to the end of the debate, say Dems had to shut down to fight Trump, therefore shut down good. That was my prediction. I feel like that's pretty much what happened.
Did you predict that I would hop in an hour in?
I did not predict that. That was a wrench in the plan. But I'd like to think. I think the viewers will be the judge of that. Let me know or say down in
the
chat if you think that prediction came true.
Happened or not. Yes.
I believe, like Ryan said, we conceded on we got to a concession on the point of the debate pretty early on. So we spent the rest of it kind of debating about other stuff and going down different rabbit holes. But once again, thank you all for having me. I got one more bet I want to make, but I'll save it for later. I'll try and remember it next time. Soypill crashes a panel. You're 2 for 2 right now, my guy. Just saying.
That's true.
Sorry.
Rick loves me crashing.
But we needed a replacement, and I shotgun blasted it out. But thank you for agreeing, Soypill. Soypill, take it away.
Yeah, so this reasoning, especially on that note, is retarded. Frankly, the idea that because one group is saying no, because they're the ones causing it, therefore, because they're the ones not capitulating to the Republicans, therefore the Democrats are doing it. When the Republicans, I could say just as much, are the ones causing it because they're the ones not capitulating to the Democrats' demands. The person who is to blame for this is the person who's being less reasonable. That's the only metric we can have. You can't just say who is voting no. You have to look at who is going in and not making compromises, who is lacking bipartisanship, who is refusing to make some sort of resolution that actually makes fucking sense. That's the Republicans. That's the only metric you can have, because otherwise I can throw this hostage analogy. I can throw out the who's voting no, who's using this at both sides. Both sides are saying no to what the other side is saying. Therefore, it's their fault. It's a ridiculous argument. The argument is, hey, if you, and we conceded to this, obviously there's a line that you guys don't draw in the same place as I do. If they do something so insane that the Republicans or the Democrats were to say no to the other side, like, let's bring back slavery, it's not the Democrats' fault for saying no, because that's insane. And this is something that we think is insane, which is kicking 17 million people off of healthcare. So no, you can't blame them. But I would concede this, that it is a little bit more subjective to what do you think is reasonable. Now, like you said, we want to be the reasonable right. You guys are fucking insane. Now, Ryan, I'll say this. You're a lot less insane than Gen Z. Gen Z, in real time, showed me that he would lie to my fucking face or just not know about Project 2025 and Rust vote, even though Trump says and admits it now, which is fucking insane. If you're defending the actions of Trump at this point, you are not the reasonable right. You are beyond the pale of fucking gone. So I don't want to have any more conversations about whether or not you guys are reasonable if what you're going to do in the reasonable is allow a fascistic, insane person to do whatever the fuck he wants. So I don't assume the worst about Trump. I played useful idiot for 2 years and said, this guy's not Hitler. This guy's not a fascist. He's not that crazy. And then time told, wait, I was fucking wrong. He is fucking insane. He's doing everything he can to maintain power. And yeah, I don't know why you can't hold it in your head, these two ideas at the same time, that in the short term, the gain of unilaterally forcing something through with the filibuster would not be beneficial in the long run of I want to amass more power in the midterms. It just is so easy to understand. So yeah, I don't think that Gen Z is reasonable at all. I think, Ryan, you are at least good faith, but I think you're blinded by what is essentially the worst things happening. But I'm happy you both agreed to fight with me on the front lines against Trump in 2028, were he to try to take power. He already tried to kill his vice president, so he might try it again. And I'll buy you both guns.
You didn't want to throw in another rapist joke there? It seemed like the right time. Like you already threw that shot at me once. It seemed like a perfect moment.
No, I wasn't
to bring
calling
it
you a
back.
rapist, Ryan. I'll let you have this because I was never accusing you of rape. What I was saying was you said, "Oh, I think that Trump's a little aggressive," and I was like, "Do you defend rapists that way?" Because I think that was incredibly soft language. Like, "Oh, I think the guy who tried to overturn the election, he's a little aggressive." That's insane to me. I think that's insane.
Yeah,
I was not calling you a rapist.
I was just pointing out that you threw out a rape accusation while I was trying to make a point, and
but not against you. Not against you.
Okay, just relative to what I was saying.
Yeah,
so,
I think
yeah,
I was using an analogy that I would never describe a rapist as an aggressive
I appreciate that you think
client.
I'm good faith, but I do have a memory. Anyway, sorry, Ultra, we're derailing you.
Ultra, close us out. Last words.
Oh, I don't know. So we kind of really said a lot of the things that I was going to say, but I'm going to go ahead and say that at its core, you can say that the Democrats are responsible because they're the ones not voting. But in the same vein, you can also say that the Republicans are able to stop the shutdown at any point, at any time that they want to, because they're able to, go ahead and strong arm and use the nuclear option. That's always an option on the table. It's not going to go away, and you know that. And there are a lot of things that Trump is doing to specifically the Republican side. First, he's lying about what the bill is about, like openly lying to the American people about what the bill is about. He's threatening Democratic programs. He's threatening to fire Democrats. He's using his power to basically put his own leadership in the government. Because like I said, and we can't get into this, but like I said, there is an underlying method to what he's trying to do. And it has a lot to do with the Office of Personnel Management memo, which again, we can't get into. But I think that it's a lot of him trying to manipulate the people to blame the Democrats, right? By using ineffective tactics. By the way, this is my first time on this panel. This is my first time meeting all of you. I really appreciate you having me. I kind of schlum around on TikTok, so I don't really have an official platform that I go on, besides the Twitter that I have. But I want to thank you guys so much for having me.
I have a link to all these people except for Soy Pill. I didn't put you.
Yeah, you never link me. What's up with that, buddy?
All right, huh?
You never link my stuff.
Wick's clearly biased against the liberals.
It's true. I'll have to adjust the thing. But
it's okay, Soy Pill. I followed you. Yeah. I found you.
Oh, thanks. I'll fall back.
I love y'all. I'll see you tomorrow. We're gonna raid out into Prime Kai. Tune in tomorrow, 8:00. Erudite and Drew Pavlo. Should be a fun one. We're probably gonna talk about heritage Americanism, and why Drew Pavlo has suddenly joined the right based on his blood and soil.
He's a disgusting, feckless grifter.
Yeah, well, I have opinions, but we already talked to him about it, actually. So you can check that out on the Wick and Tally show we did with him. But okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Toodles.
Bye-bye.